Oh, welcome to Family Hour of the YAHOWAH blog. We actually have a full cast of characters tonight. We're proceeding on my favorite series thus far and all of the things that we have done. I didn't think anything would ever pass my love of Dowd is the One, the 89th Mizmor. But nonetheless, I think this story on returning to the garden has been my favorite because of all of the profound insights that we have derived and how really important they are for our time and for our lives. Up there in the top left, we have Captain Kirk. I understand you've been you have been probed these last few days. You're about to be radiated. So the next time we see you, you're going to be glowing. And I understand that there is jeopardy for that those 3 hairs on the top of your head. They could be put at risk, but you have been successfully probed and survived it.
Yeah, so far.
You've counted each of them. You have an inventory of those hairs, and you're gonna protect them.
I marked them so we can redo the transplant.
All right, and underneath Captain Kirk, we have Dr. Jeff. Dr. Jeff, it appears that you are at home. It is always good to see you, my friend. Dr. Jeff and I have been together for, almost as long as Moses has been around. For some reason, we have you on mute, Dr. Jeff, so we'll have to figure out.
Mic, Jeff.
We'll have to. There we go.
There we go. Okay. We're banking on a quarter century, bro.
We are quarter century. We've been together like 4 times, 5 times longer than the average marriage. So this is a good sign. And Captain Kirk and I have been together almost as long. So I guess the marriage is not monogamous, but nonetheless, this is a good thing. One of the nice things too is that men, when you have a common interest and care about one another, we can actually get along and bond for a very long time.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah. And JB, you are the perfect example of how when we agree on a common cause, we can disagree on some of the details that comprise that common cause. I think we've only had 1 or 2 disagreements, and both times we actually, rather than saying, what's wrong with you? How come you don't see it my way? We took it exactly the opposite and say, that's a really interesting position. I like the logic that you use to get there. In both cases, I think we walked out saying, I think the position that I'm taking is equally justifiable, and I'm going to appreciate yours. I'll probably stick to my conclusion on some things. I think one of them was whether we observe Pesach beginning on the evening of the 13th, which would be the start of the 14th day, or is it the following day? And, I'm of the conclusion that the 14th day starts on the sunset on the 13th day of the month. But you went through some excellent justifications for your position. I think it's grand fun to be able to disagree on things like that and come out of it with more respect for the other party.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So we have done that. And there I see, Kevin, you are a man about town. You now are sitting, that round window is as I shared with you at the beginning of before we actually dialed into the show, that is the Leah window. There's a wall. It happened to be the master bedroom is what is behind you of this home that we've remodeled here. And there was that's the ocean side of the master bedroom. And it was this long, like 8 or 9 foot concrete wall. And my wife said, that's a really dumb place to have a wall. I think what would look really good there is a round window. And
round,
I said, well, if your wife wants something done in the master, well, it only took 4 men 2 weeks time with 2-inch drills to cut through the foot thick of engineered concrete and the rebar, and then a major crane to lift the thing out. But we got it out and put in a blue round window there, and it's beautiful. That's one of the highlights of the house. So nice to see you there. And we have Leah right now without little Cara. We don't get to see Leah without Cara very often, but I think Cara was being rambunctious.
Very.
So Cara got a timeout for the moment. We have the other 2 dogs that are having a good time here, but good to see you, Leah.
Shabbat shalom.
Yeah,
everyone.
Shabbat shalom to everyone. And Rich, you're over there hiding behind the cables.
Incognito as usual.
Incognito. There's our buddy Rich. So it's wonderful to be part of Family Hour. I began this program by saying that my favorite series thus far is the one we're continuing now. It's called Returning to the Garden. Leah has just shown me the new thumbnails for it to properly present it on our various social media sites. I think there's about 12 of them now that we are presenting material on. There's everything from TikTok to Instagram to Rumble, Patreon, and at least 4 channels on YouTube, plus 3, I think, on Facebook. And then
we just started Twitch today, so Twitch is a big one. So
we're twitching. We're twitching today, and
yes,
we're also we are still surviving on X, which is a major miracle considering the swamp that X has become. But it's been marvelous, and I just saw that we have new headers for all of our social media sites, and wow, they are really beautiful. I was telling Leah that I need one of those for the Facebook page too. But goodness gracious, they're gorgeous. The new graphics and that branding series on Yada, it's really do you Yada? It's just magnificent. So we've come a long way under my wife's branding campaign. I know she's also working with you and with Mariah and others on this project, but she's the driving force of it, and it's greatly appreciated. My wife is very stylish, and we're here to convey Yahweh's message to the world. And so it's
Yahweh said, make it pretty it up.
Yeah, Yahweh said, make it pretty. Yeah, Yahweh does pretty.
Make it pretty.
Yeah, Yahweh does pretty. No question about it.
it.
The reason that this series, ladies and gentlemen, is my favorite is that when we return to it, and I had translated Bereshith, Genesis 1, 2, and 3, probably 22 years ago.
Long time ago.
And have translated it on and off, probably 8-10 times through that period. Mm-hmm. And yet this most recent time through, over this past month.
Wowza.
Oh my goodness, it has been like the floodgates of insights have opened up to us.
Yeah.
And how this whole experience has been prophetic. We're no longer viewing what took place in the garden as a historic account, although I'm certain that elements of it transpired exactly as it is told, but it's prophetic.
Yeah.
It is one of the great teaching moments that exists in the Torah. And so
it's sort of an if you know kind of moment. If you're not in the know, it's meaningless.
Yeah,
it loses its value entirely.
Yeah, it's the realization that we have deduced from what transpired in the garden are all a result of 24 years of 100,000 hours of dedicated research, of translations and writing. These books that comprise the YadaYahowah series. So this is the most recent that we have published. Time of Trouble. That's YadaYahowah Volume 9. They're free in their entirety at YadaYah.com. They are sold royalty free at Amazon. I encourage you to buy them. In fact, I just talked to Joe. The last of the books will now be redone and presented, reformatted at Amazon later this evening, early tomorrow morning. So we have completed that milestone, have rebranded the books as
Thanks, Joe.
had requested.
Woo!
So thank you, Joe.
Joe.
And Joe also redid our website, YadaYah.com, so that it really is the first interactive website that blends a library of books, these 35 books that you see around me, all in a flip book format that's really fun
Videos,
and easy to read. And then in addition to the full library of books presented that way, we have a presentation of the most recent vlogs, the YAHOWAH vlogs. So we have the longs and the shorts. This program will appear shortly after we've done it. So you can literally watch and listen to this program at YadaYah.com without ever leaving the YadaYah.com site. So it's a marvelous way to interact, and you can see all of these programs in one place. And then I wanted to have an interactive capability where we were blending an internet site with the appeal of a blog. So we have the vlog that comes first, which is these video programs, and then we have the blog. And Joe was able to come up with a way of automatically populating the YadaYah.com site with some of our more interesting posts here on, Facebook and on X, and they're automatically populated. So you can see what we're talking about. So I don't think anyone's ever had a blog appear like that on a website, as well as a vlog that appears on the website, as well as a full library of the books that they have written on a website. And then, of course, we have the links to all of these various social media channels. And we probably should, Kevin, just update them and make sure that we have a link to all of them there as well. And then very shortly, we're going to be adding things. We're coming up with an innovative version of the timeline.
We're coming up with a video presentation of the timeline, and hopefully something that's a little more interactive and dynamic.
Yes.
We're also working on countdowns.
Yeah, countdown. So we know how much time we have left to each of these important rendezvous. We're the first actually to figure out YAHOWAH's timeline. So we know exactly when everything is going to happen between now and the time that we are readmitted to the garden on October 7th of 2033. And so we'll have some countdowns presented on the website. And again, everything on the YadaYah.com website is free. We don't have a donate to us button. We've never asked anybody for money. We don't take money from anyone. It's all there in its entirety for free. The glossary that you composed, Kirk, is being put into a database now. And we have two really outstanding database managers that are working on it. And then so is a
Index.
A search of all of the passages of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms that I have translated.
Oh, wow.
They're being put into a database, and so that will be searchable. And then we're also training an LLM to be able to do an intelligent search of the full database of all of the books. So there'll be really an interesting way to use a artificial intelligence to search the books and to answer questions that people may have. My good friend Joe, who we've been talking about here, is going to come for a couple of week visit. He'll be here in a couple of days, and now that he's finished the books, we're going to turn to enhancing the website, and so we're really grateful that we have all this work being done on the databases and making progress in this regard. We're going to continue to make the website as robust and interesting as can be. So
We sure did pull it out of 1992, didn't we?
we did certainly update it and updated all of the books and everything that is part of it, and keeping with what YAHOWAH had wanted. And of course, the biggest change of all is that all of you guys know that for the last 24 years, I have been devoted to being a translator and a writer. And that's how we've come up with the 25,000 pages of books, of these 35 books that you see around me. And that's been the impetus of the effort over this time. I did have a syndicated radio show called Shattering Myths, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for a number of years. And then we did the YadaYah radio as a radio blog for a while, but we're just celebrating now our 1 year anniversary on vlogging, which when you're starting with us graybeards and you say it's time to vlog. speak to people. You know,
That's a young man's game.
That is it's a young man's or a woman's game there. But yet it's turned out beautifully. The advantage of the vlogging has been that we can make understanding and communication coterminous. So literally it's just a matter of hours, sometimes days, sometimes concurrent, that an insight that we can derive is instantly shared. And that's really not possible any other way. And we've entered a new realm. For centuries upon centuries, the only way to reliably communicate information, something that Yahweh insisted on, was to convey it in writing. It is by far the most effective way to study, if you're a genuine student of who Yahweh is to read translations of his words and analysis of them. And if you happen to be Jewish and you say, I don't need any stinking translation, you know, I speak and read Hebrew, I would beg to differ with you, because the problems are
the rabbis have deceived you.
The rabbis have deceived you. The Masoretic text is significantly altered. The diacritical marks are quite misleading. There are names like Yahweh that have been removed from it, and they will lead you astray. And that modern Hebrew and the Hebrew of the Torah are significantly different. Mm-hmm. And there are aspects of the language of the Torah, including the stems and the moods and the conjugations, that are just very different than the way languages work today, that are brilliant for communicating this message. And so
before we move on, may I? Neshama, the rabbis have deceived you. And if you think that you can open a Torah and understand it as it is, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah, it's
and they meant to do it.
That is not
through your head. They meant to do it.
Yeah, that's not because the Torah is difficult to understand.
No,
it's because, first of all, you need to go back to the oldest manuscripts, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Then you need to scrub every word of the diacritical markings, which have been deliberately misleading in favor of the religion, which we have done. And then it's useful to create an amplified translation so that the full intent that God was communicating is all there for you to consider, because he is a much more robust communicator than any translation gives him credit. And then you need to have a verification mode, which we have done in all of our translations, so that when you have a translation from Yahweh, you're in a position to look at, and here, you know, pages here, where you can see that the bold text conveys the key aspect of the particular message, where in the parenthetical is the Hebrew word in its most genetic form that you can copy and paste into any search engine and validate the translations. This gives tremendous credibility to the rendering of the text, so that you can validate it for yourself and find out who's telling you the truth. And so I think all of these things are essential, as well as to have a translation, particularly an amplified and verifiable translation from the Dead Sea Scrolls, scrubbed of the religious diacritical markings, that is juxtaposed to an ongoing commentary. Because the purpose of the commentary is that I can, and I guess could, have just left you the text to read. But the fact is that no one's understood the text in between 2,500 and 3,000 years. So even though the translations would be more complete and accurate and verifiable, it's not enough for most people, because they just don't understand it.
They don't get it.
And that's why we're going to go, when we return to the garden, this series, we're going to share things that no one has seen, but yet are undeniably true. And I'm going to begin with a recap, going over those things.
You know, Craig, I was going to say that in deference and truthful respect to the Etz Ada'at, the tree of knowledge, I'm going to go out on a limb here. And that what I'm saying is that the flow of knowledge, which has morphed into a deluge, which has subsequently evolved into a tsunami of knowledge, is as relevant and as important as those, if not more so, who have won Nobel Prizes in medicine and science over the years.
Agreed.
Particularly if your interest is in God. If you want to know why we're here, how life was conceived, why it was conceived, how we can escape this planet alive and go explore the universe, how we can inherit the covenant that has been promised from Yahweh, and how he accomplished all these things. This is the only place you can go. There's no other place ever that has, in the past 2,500 years, that's properly conveyed Yahweh's name, introduced you back to his beloved Son, who's the one who has enabled our salvation, or to explain the timeline that we're up against now and where we are in it.
I've shared with you that this is beyond life-saving. This is life-preserving and perpetuating into eternity.
Yeah.
And for those who think that we're blowing our own horn, you're goddamn right we are. We were asked to blow the shofar. Are you listening? Come on.
Yeah, and it's not really our horn. It's Yahweh's.
No,
it's Yahweh's horn, and God's really clear on making it obvious when He has chosen someone through whom He wants to speak. And in the role that we are fulfilling now, there are upwards of 1,000 prophecies. Many of those prophecies are some of the most profoundly important prophecies that have ever been considered. You start with the fourth day of creation. The fourth day of creation has nothing to do with the creation of the sun and the moon. The sun, God has a word for sun. There's a word for moon in Hebrew. Neither one are mentioned. And by the way, the sun and the moon existed long before there was plant life on this planet. And the third day is the conception of plant life out of the ocean. So the fourth day had, nothing to do with the conception of the sun and moon, and doesn't say so. It's a profoundly important prophecy. It says that on the fourth day, Yahweh revealed that there would be a greater and lesser luminary. He calls both of the luminaries important. They're both exceedingly relevant, but the greater luminary is more important. And that luminary is the source of enlightenment that we are considering. And the lesser luminary reflects the greater luminary's light. And they serve as signs for the Mow'ed, which are these 7 annual meetings for us to not only meet with God, but for us to be introduced to the restoring witness to the eternal testimony. There is nothing more important. What a profoundly important prophecy. And the prophecy speaks of Dowd, the beloved Son of God, our Savior, the former and returning King, and of his herald, Yada. And then it goes to the tree of lives and the tree of knowledge. Again, that's the exact same 2 individuals, with Dowd representing the tree of lives and Yada representing the tree of knowledge, with one leading to the other the same way. And you go all the way through the text, the 18th chapter of Dowd. It's an ode to Dowd. That the person that Moshe was speaking of is God's beloved son. It's Dowd, the Messiah, the King, the prophet. And then you turn to the 29th chapter of Dowd, Deuteronomy. You're introduced to Ha-Nakri, the observant foreigner that makes us all aware of these things. And God introduced both of them and made it very clear that he had chosen Moshe to speak for him about these things, and that these 2 individuals represent the characters that flesh out God's story. They're introduced in the 15th chapter of Numbers as the ram and the bull, and they fulfill the Mow'ed Mikre. The ram fulfills Pesach, Matzah, and Bakudim. The bull fulfills Shabuah and Towrah, and they fulfill Yom Kippurim, which is Dowd's day to return, in collaboration with one another, and they are interlaced branches of the tree of knowledge and lives in the garden. come Sukkah. So God's very clear as to who these individuals will be. Now, specifically as we speak of the garden, there's some things that were profoundly important. We want to cover them again prior to pursuing with the text. The first of those is that a garden is Gan, and Gan is based upon Gana. Sukkah is based upon Sukkak. Sukkak, the verb, and Gana, the verb, both speak of that which is protected, enclosed, covered, and sheltered. And so the garden, this sheltered garden, was a microcosm of what God created in the earth, our planet. They are sheltered, protective, enclosed, environments that are conducive to life. We have talked about this considerably, but the fact is, it is highly likely that Earth is the only planet in the universe that is conducive to the kind of life that we're enjoying. And we say this for lots of reasons. There are so many finely tuned ingredients to our planet, from the molten core and the magnetic field that protects us from cosmic radiation, to the water vapor in our atmosphere and the perfect size of the Earth to hold that atmosphere in place, and the magnetic field to keep it from being blown away by the solar winds that protect us from all of the harm that exists in the universe that would just kill life. You know, the perfect distance away with the perfect orbit from the ideal star, with an ideal sized moon in the ideal place, and an ideal planet the size of Jupiter to suck up and to prevent the constant bombardment of comets and meteorites that would snuff out life on this planet, and the tectonic plates that are necessary, the tides that are necessary. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. The axis of the Earth, all of it, to be conducive to life. And the likelihood that there is another planet that is in the right spot within its galaxy, and the right galaxy, and the right distance from its star, and the right kind of star, and all of the other things that go with it, when you do the math, it's nil. And even if it were not nil, and it is, we are never getting off this planet. And yeah, we can go to the moon, big whoop. If the vanity project remains and the economy doesn't collapse within the next 3 years, which both are possible, that in fact it's likely that the U.S. economy will collapse, then there may be a vanity trip to Mars, but no one's going to live there, and no one's coming back. Yeah. So it's only a place to die. And so this is it. I mean, they're bragging now that there may be a habitable planet around Proxima Centauri. It's not possible. Proxima Centauri is a red dwarf. They're not stable enough. The planet's 4 times the size of the Earth. It's not going to happen. And let's just pretend that it was possible. It would only take you like 40,000 years to get there.
You know.
I hope you can freeze your DNA.
Yeah, I mean, it's at this point, a manned object as fastest it's ever gone is 1/10 of the 1/10 of 1% of the speed of light. 1/10 of 1%. It's not going to get there. So,
you think the gravity's 4 times as much as there as well? It would be 4 Gs when you set foot on that planet.
Yes. Yeah,
with it being 4 times the size. So,
yeah, yeah, we'd be pancaked, and the other things are that the thickness of the atmosphere. It's like, look at Venus. Venus is the same size as the Earth, but it has so much atmosphere that is around that planet that the pressure on the surface of Venus is like being 2,000 feet under the ocean. Where you'd be compressed to nothing. I mean, you wouldn't breathe for a nanosecond. I mean, it's just so much that goes into so much
instantly.
It'd be instantly crushed, and it's of course the temperatures are high enough that they'd melt any metal object. Your skin would be singed instantly. a metal craft that's perfectly designed for the harsh environment. I think the longest any one of them last was an hour, and most of them were just minutes.
One picture.
One picture. Yeah. Smile, planet. This is our only shot. But Mars isn't much different. They keep on showing pictures of Mars with all of these beautiful habitats, and they're all glass enclosures, and they have these panoramic views, and they're terraforming and planting crops outside. The soil is completely toxic. The only way that you could survive on Mars is in a hole in the ground. And there is zero chance that you could have a metal building or a glass building, because the radiation would just go right through it. So if you have to live in a hole in the ground and you can't use the soil, and you have no access to water, you have no access to oxygen, the gravity is so light there, a third of Earth, that your bones and your heart would all decay very quickly. What's the point? Who are we kidding? And you're never going to generate an atmosphere. You're never going to be able to spend any amount of time on the surface. You're going to die there if you didn't die en route. So it's just utter nonsense that there is an option for us off of this planet. And the way we're going right now with war. Did you gentlemen see what came out of NATO yesterday?
No.
Oh my! I've been saying to very little fanfare for,
even from me, I didn't believe it.
Yeah, for 15 years now, way back in the Shattering Myths days, I recognized that Ukraine was a bribery-oriented state that could not
Very
survive
correct.
on its own. That it was you had to constantly supply money because of the bribery and graft that was in Ukraine. And I began to notice how the International Monetary Fund was vying for supplying that gravy train of cash, and the IMF wouldn't do that unless somebody's being manipulative and wanted to take.
But before
Ukraine.
that, it was Russia's welfare child.
Yeah, it was Russia's
Absolutely.
welfare child, and Russia could do that because they had the pipelines, and they could reclaim the interest on the debt through transit fees on those pipelines. But the IMF wanted it, and so they replaced Russia. And then I watched as NATO continued to encroach, and I said, "This is going to be a disaster." And I've been sharing ever since that. Nuland, the Secretary of State or Assistant Secretary of State, is on vocals recorded talking about regime change. That John McCain, who I knew personally, and
I didn't doubt the Americans were involved. What I doubted, the Europeans, I didn't think they were involved.
Who?
The EU.
No,
I didn't think they were involved.
The EU was not involved. It's just the United States. The United States. This is the release, is that the documents that were the original plan, written by American statesmen, the CIA and the neocons under George Bush, wrote the plan of how they would use the encroachment of NATO to create a war against Russia, and then at the same time perpetrate regime change in Russia to destabilize Putin. And carve Russia up so that it was a bunch of rump states that the United States could control and could seize the mineral rights and the wealth of Russia for itself. And the whole dossier of what we were going to do to Russia to carve it up and steal it was released. Official NATO US documents. And it affirms everything that I've said all the way along. It was obvious. I mean, you have John McCain and Lindsey Graham actually telling the Ukrainians 2 years before the war began that there's going to be a war. We're using you as the proxy, and we're going to supply you with the weapons, and the target is Russia.
Here's your glass of champagne.
And yet 80% of Americans think that Russia is the bad guy, and it isn't. They're the victim. And, it's just astonishing that you can tell people and prove your point, and you can't get through with anybody who's overtly controlled by or influenced by either religion or politics. But I share this because what the United States did is declare war on Russia. And we have done everything we can to push the world towards a nuclear war. And now the UK and now Germany and France are fanning the flames of nuclear war. And so it's important that you learn this stuff now and pay attention, because the world's not going to last much longer. It's got 8 years before it does a complete meltdown, and Yahweh has to intervene to save life on the planet. So you want to be on the right side of this. So
Craig,
here we, yeah.
In your opinion, would you call this the ultimate or most sophisticated false flag type of an operation, which is repeating the playbook, which has occurred in the past?
Well, the worst of them is tough, because the United States has led upwards of 100 regime change operations, all with negative outcomes since the end of World War II. So the false flag operations led by the United States, the CIA, are numerous. We're now working on Venezuela, but we have done all manner of harm to South and Central America. And European nations and nations around the world. America thinks that it runs the world, and the world is its to do whatever it wants to do with. And I would say that the regime change operation in Ukraine, and attempted regime change in Russia, and the cause of this proxy war against Russia in the Ukraine, which the United States and NATO have lost, that it was the dumbest of them all, because it put the world on the precipice of nuclear war. And it's been what I've said from the beginning, that you have to be a complete ignoramus, not only immoral because of the 2 million people have died, pursuing your selfish financial agenda and your lies. But if the Ukraine and the United States and NATO were to have prevailed, and they would have achieved what they sought out to achieve, which is the destruction of Russia, turning it into a bunch of rump states that could be controlled by the United States, then on the way out, Russia would absolutely engage with nuclear attacks, with nuclear missiles. It was certain. And so if winning means losing everything, the whole planet, then what is the purpose? So if you win the conventional war, which now Russia has won, but if you win the conventional war, you're going to have a nuclear war. And if you lose the conventional war, you're going to have lots of people dead, and you're going to accomplish nothing and make everything worse, like we destroyed NATO and the United States in the process. I mean, the gravest thing that the United States has done, actually, if you want to know the single biggest mistake of the United States in the last 50 years, is when they stole Russia's sovereign accounts, a couple of $100 billion of Russian assets, because every nation was forced to keep sovereign debt, sovereign assets in dollars, because the United States made a deal with Saudi Arabia. The deal we made with Saudi Arabia is that our military, our servicemen, would defend Saudi Arabia as if it were a state of the United States, which is what they did in the Gulf War, sacrificing American blood to go against Saddam Hussein and Iraq. You know, we lost Americans honoring a deal that we made with Saudi Arabia for oil and petrodollars. And so the deal was we would protect our military, the U.S. military, would fight and die protecting Saudi Arabia, so long as Saudi Arabia agreed to sell oil only in US dollars, which means that if you want to buy oil, you have to have a reserve of dollars. And what that has enabled the United States to do is to buy whatever it wants to buy around the world and pay for it in worthless paper, because there's always a market for our worthless paper. So now we have $38 trillion in debt in this worthless paper. And we traded worthless paper for goods and services. And of course, we destroyed the US economy in the process. But when the US took the sovereign wealth of Russia and confiscated it, what it said to the world is, you can't trust us.
Ever.
the U.S. Treasury bonds are no longer safe. They're a weapon. And if we don't like you, we will steal your sovereign assets.
And militarily, when we pulled out of Afghanistan, we were also proof to the world that we can't be trusted.
Oh, well, we lost the Afghani war long before that. We've
Yes.
lost every war since World War II. We couldn't even beat the Houthis, much less the Taliban. But no, the issue was when we stole the sovereign wealth of Russia on a war that we initiated. What we proved is that the dollar is weaponized and it cannot be trusted. And so every country around the world, including Saudi Arabia, said, we need an alternative to dollars because this isn't going to work. You can't trust the United States and they will steal your money.
They're the bully.
And so put China in the driver's seat along with Russia. They were the industrial engine of the world. They started buying gold. Gold is at record highs because central banks around the world now are storing their wealth in gold as opposed to dollars. When the treasury bonds expire, no one's buying them anymore. Not Japan, not China, not nobody, not no way, not no how. And so the U.S. cannot finance its debt anymore without doing what Germany did, where you just, in Argentina, where you print so much money, it takes wheelbarrows to buy a loaf of bread. And that is where the United States is now. And they have no one that wants to help the United States because we proved that we cannot be trusted. The dollar can't be trusted. So the dollar is rapidly losing its place as a reserve currency. And when it is no longer a reserve currency, there is no way for America to sustain its debt. And they've always said that when your payment on debt, service of debt, exceeds your defense spending and is the highest expense item on a national balance sheet, that you're done as a country. And now the number one item from an expense for the United States is service on the debt of money that we squandered long ago. We are literally funding our military and our economy with funny money that has no value, and it's all going to crash, and we're going to have economic chaos.
So, Craig, when will, in your opinion, will the yuan become the reserve currency for the Saudis? When will the Saudis dump the U.S.?
Well, the Saudis, MBS is a psychopath, but he's not stupid. Most psychopaths aren't stupid. Some are. We've had one that was trying to screw around with us that is a stupid psychopath. So there are some, but most of psychopaths are fairly bright. Donald Trump is a stupid psychopath, but they vary in intelligence. MBS is actually a fairly smart psychopath.
Devious.
He has all but abandoned the petrodollar already. He sells all of Saudi Arabia, all of Chinese imports of oil out of Saudi Arabia in the yuan.
And he's exporting gold out of Africa by the ton.
Yes,
illegally.
He is building huge gold reserves.
Yeah.
So is China. China now has, I think, the largest in the world. But Saudi Arabia will sell you oil in any currency you want to buy now. So they no longer honor the petrodollar agreement, but the United States just doubled down, committing the United States military to defend Saudi Arabia against any foe, including Israel. So if Israel and Saudi Arabia got in a war together, the United States is committed to defend Saudi Arabia as opposed to Israel. So that is where we are on all of this, and it's going to come to a crashing halt. Saudi Arabia is not an official BRICS member; it's an unofficial BRICS member, and BRICS now is the driving force in the world. They have replaced SWIFT, so they have an exchange mechanism that bypasses SWIFT, because SWIFT was weaponized by the United States. And because the yuan and other currencies now are gold backed, they returned to gold as opposed to fiat currencies. Those currencies can be trusted. And so the United States is just, it's screwed. And the reason you need to know this is because God's offering you an opportunity to come back into the garden and get our act together. And if you don't accept it, you're going to be part of a world that is literally destroying itself, and it's going to happen in in rapid order. Even Warren Buffett came out in one of his our programs last week and said that it's no longer an if for the United States, and
It's a win.
it may not even be a win because it's going to happen so quickly now that the United States is bankrupt, and this is the way that it's going to deal with its bankruptcy. And he went through all of the points, and it's a frightening situation. Same thing's happening throughout Europe, particularly with France will be the next to go. They can't even pass a budget. But that is where we are. So what God is doing is he is equating the Garden of Eden with the planet Earth. And he's telling us at the end of this 8 years, when man just goes amok, economies fail, and there is world war, and the Muslims do everything they can to destroy Israel. There'll be Alaska flood 2.0, 1,000 times worse. That as a result of all of those things, God is saying that he is going to obliterate everyone who is anti-Semitic. Everyone who is religious will be gone. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. Anyone who is overtly political will be gone. The Marxists, communists, MAGAs will all be obliterated. And all weapons of war will be destroyed. He's going to incinerate all of them on one day. One day is Towrah, and that will be on the 24th of September of 2033. And in place of that, not all over the entire world, there's going to be some places that are still going to be considered bad. And Babylon and Saudi Arabia and in that area, there's going to be a little section there that is the no-go zone, the no-fly zone, if you will. But for the most part, he's going to transform the earth into the conditions experienced in Eden. He even has a plan for Gaza. His plan for Gaza,
He sure does.
Yeah, is to turn it into
Leia's sheep grazing farm.
Sheep grazing and paddocks for flocks of sheep. So he's got a plan for the whole thing. And what he's doing is he said emphatically that he is transforming the earth into the conditions experienced in Eden. So we know when it's going to happen. And now we know why it's going to happen. And that is because and the date, by the way, is Sukkah, which is why I shared that with you, that the 6 steps that take us to the destination, the 7th, in the Mow'ed Mikra, take us to Sukkah, which means we're returning to the garden. And the reason that God is bringing us back to the garden is we blew it the first time.
Oh, boy, did we blow it.
And this is one of the things that I don't think that anyone has ever recognized previously. Everyone wants to blame Eve for taking a bite of the apple and seducing Adam to join her. She didn't seduce Adam.
Oh, no.
And there was no Eve.
No.
So neither of those things happened, and the fact is that.
But it doesn't stop them from making it up.
Well,
mind you,
it didn't. The fact of the matter is that the decision pursuant to the fall of man was made well before that occurred, and it was made by Yahweh. Mm-hmm. That Yahweh states that he is responsible for the fall of man. And the fall is the verb. Mm-hmm. And the fall is such an important verb because when Yahweh spoke to Noah and asked him to build the ark to save his family and his and the animals in that region, it was only the region around the Black Sea. When he asked them to do that, who were the people that he regretted having conceived?
The Nephilim.
Nephilim.
Yeah,
Nephilim.
And Nephilim is just the plural of Nephal, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So they are the fallen. This is the people that God said, I regret having created man because they had fallen. And in the garden, the instigator for the fall of man is actually Yahweh. And so then we're in a position when you recognize it was Yahweh before Chawa, which was her name. It means to state her position boldly. Before Chawa took a bite of the fruit from the tree of knowledge and handed it to Adam. God made the decision that he needed to foreclose on this experiment.
It's such a key point, Craig, is that this is all pre-Towrah.
Pre-Towrah.
Pre-Towrah. And in another statement, Yah even states low Towrah in his verb.
Yes. Well, actually, in the second statement that Yahweh etched on the first of the two tablets, he actually uses lo Towrah as a verb to explain that you should not be religious. Do not create masculine or feminine gods or goddesses. That this is a very bad thing to do. The whole second statement that was etched in stone is don't be religious. And he uses lo Towrah, the negation of the verb that is the basis of Towrah's name, which means to make a bold proclamation. He says, don't do that. Do not make a proclamation in favor of masculine or feminine gods or goddesses. So, this is absolutely true. Now, the thing that we also determined is that Yahweh decided that he was going to leave this relationship with Adam before Towrah was created, and which is why he said it's not good for man to be alone. Yes. He would never have said that if his intent was to stay in Adam's proximity, in his company, because then he wouldn't have been alone, would he?
No.
So when God said it's not good for man to be alone, it was because God intended to end that relationship.
Wow.
And so we're put on notice really early on that this relationship was not working out for God. And then we learn that after he created Towrah, one of the things that we find it's fascinating is that he says that Adam was created in his image. Now, that does not mean that Adam was the first man, but he becomes the first man created in God's image by the addition of a nasama, a conscience. Mm-hmm. This is the very thing that separates humans from artificial intelligence. They say that they have new supercomputers now that they can think faster than all of the 8 billion humans on the earth combined. Well, I'm telling you that they're really not thinking. They're processing information. They're not thinking, and they have no judgment, no discernment, no sense of right and wrong. And the nasama is what gives us humans that capacity. It's just that it's unused by most people today. And so God says that nasama made Adam unique. And then so he took this man, gave him a nasama, and put him into the enclosure of Eden, saying that he was now in the image of God, which means he had a conscience. Then he creates Towrah, but Towrah was created in the image of man, not in the image of God. Right. And Towrah's express purpose was to work to support the man. And I know that today women, hear me roar, but the fact of the matter is God also puts himself in that same position. God says, I'm here to help. Ezer is the verb. God uses it to talk about the fact he's here to help man. So this is a very positive thing, the fact that Towrah was created to be supportive of man, and man was created to work with Yahweh. It's his first instruction, to be observant so that he was aware of his environment, a good explorer, someone to be fun to take on a road trip together, that he was supposed to listen to Yahweh and respond appropriately and engage to make the situation better. And if he failed, to have the wherewithal to get back up. Adam failed across the board. Yahweh was very clear that Adam was listless. He was unmotivated. He didn't listen. He didn't contribute. There's not a single statement where Adam did anything that had any value. And so we find out why God gave up on Adam. He wanted somebody that he could take off of this planet and explore the universe that he created. 2 trillion galaxies out there waiting to be explored. He wanted someone he could trust to take from 3 dimensions into 7 dimensions. And Adam wasn't that guy. He didn't listen, didn't respond, didn't show any resolve, no contribution to the relationship. He was dull, uninteresting, unreliable. And that's the reason why God ended the experiment. Because in that sheltered place of Eden, there was no way that Adam was going to improve, because you only gain value as a person by making a contribution, creating something, building something, working. When we work, we build things of value. When we don't work, we don't. I mean, all these insights that have come to us, understanding the conditions of Eden, have occurred because we worked at it. You know, we work from before sunrise to well after sunset every day. If you don't work at it, it's not going to happen. So this is what Adam didn't do. Now, there was a guy that came around 3,000 years later that did all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
He was brilliant. He listened to God. He responded appropriately. He engaged. He was did whatever Yahweh wanted him to do. And he was great at it, passionate about contributing. And he fell lots of times. And every time he fell, he got right back up. Better, wiser, more reliable for the experience. That man is Dowd, the man that God said, "This is my son, I'm his father. He's my chosen one." So we are capable of being what God wants from us. Dowd proved it. Adam did not. So we learned a lot about what was wrong in the garden, which now tells us that when God is taking us back to the garden, he is instructing us as to what we need to do differently if we're going to have this opportunity to leave this protective enclosure suitable for life that we call Earth and go explore the universe with him. And there's 2 trillion galaxies out there. There's only one way you're ever going to see them. And that is when you shed these physical bodies and your soul resides in light and energy. And when that happens, you can explore the entire universe and get from here to there 100 light years away in no time whatsoever. And when you're there, you can transform some percentage of your energy into matter and enjoy, a good glass of wine, or feel this heat of that star against your cheek. Enjoy a Passover meal. So we're going to have those opportunities, but what we have to do is to be like Dowd, like David. And that's the reason why there's a final remnant of Yisrael that's being invited back into the garden. And it is our responsibility to share with them what we have learned. That's why all of these books exist. This will be the library for Eden. And we will share with them what we have come to know and set an example of what it's like to work, to make a contribution, and to be reliable. We're also going to establish the realization that God's not looking for perfect.
Isn't it imperative? Isn't it imperative, Craig? Isn't it imperative, just to everybody, that we learn and grow from the lessons of Adam and Chawah? It was purposeful and by design that they did what they did, so that we would do it differently.
And, right. That's the power of this Returning to the Garden series, is so that we understand that Adam and Chawah were wrong. They bored God. They disappointed God. They didn't work. They didn't learn. They didn't listen. They were not observant. And when they stumbled, they didn't get up. They continued to wallow around in their mistake. And then what we learn is 3,000 years later, God says, now this guy, he is my chosen one. This guy is my son. I'm his father. I'm bringing him back such that he is the full influence of God in my presence, Elyon. And that's Dowd. So then we have to compare everything we can learn about David to Adam. And we find out that Dowd is the antithesis of Adam. And so our goal is to communicate to people, you need to know about Dowd. You need to respect him. You need to recognize that he fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakorim. He did what God wanted.
Be more
He did what
Dowd.
he
Yeah.
wanted. Yeah, he did what he wanted. He did what was right to do. He was right. He was committed. God called him his Ebed Ani, my coworker.
Mhm.
And he was a prophet of the first order. He wrote dissertations on how to observe the Torah. 119th Mizmor. What a spectacular document. His first 35 Psalms plus so many of the others are revolutionary in the way that they introduce the purpose of life to us and his purpose. So the answer is be like Dowd. Don't be like Adam. So it's a beautiful presentation of what God expects for us. And the timing here is less than 8 years and we're being brought back. Now, there are some people who will enter the garden already prepared to live in the seventh dimension with Yahweh. And they will be those who are harvested on Shabuah and then gleaned on Towrah. But all of the rest are the remnant of Yisrael and Goyim who are deemed sufficiently unreligious and unpolitical, non-conspiratorial, anti-Semitic, such that they can be purged of their guilt of omission and be allowed back into the garden. But they're going in as babies. They don't know diddly squat. They'll just be learning Yahweh's name. They'll just be learning who Dowd is. They're in nursery school. And so we've got 1,000 years to prepare them to be like Dowd. And that is the story of returning to the garden. Profoundly important. And there are some important dates along the way, but the ultimate date, if you don't make the Shabuah harvest or the Towrah gleaning, is to be there on the Shabbat of Towrah, the 24th of September in 2033, so that you can be purged of your guilt and re-enter that garden as Dowd returns 10 days later and we enter the garden 5 days after that. So this is profound. I mean, I know that none of these things have been shared previously. So with that hour-long introduction, gentlemen, let's return to the text. So it reads, Yahweh, who is God, called out, issuing an invitation to read and recite, Hikara, to the man, El Adam. And he said to him, where are you? Where are you? Now, is God going to ask that question if he's omniscient, knows all?
No.
And why would God use a verb like kara when he could have used the common word for God said to him, which would have been amar, or even God spoke to him, which would be debar? Why do you think he used kara?
It's the basis of Mikra.
Yeah, of course. It's prophetic, isn't it? Because the only way that you're going to get from where are you to here I am is through the Mikra. And Mikra is based on Kara. It's the 7 steps that we walk to God, 6 steps to him, and the final destination, which is Sukkah, the re-entrance into the garden. And so God was telling you the way that this is the path back. The path back is to be called out of this world, to answer the invitation to meet and greet Yahweh by reading and reciting what he has provided, Kara. And there are 7 of these Mikre. And he said, to him, where are you? And that's the question everyone should be asking themselves. Where am I? Pursuant to God, where am I? If you're an Israeli, you're thinking, well, God's protected us, boy. We're under his protection. No, you're not. God made it really clear that he has left you. Where you are is one thing. Where he is another thing. And he says he's returning to Shamayim and he's not coming back until you return to him, and you're not going to return to him in mass until Towrah in year 6,000. Yeah, you don't even know what year it is. You're off by 197 years. But year 6,000, yeah, it's only 8 years from now, 2033.
Right. By the way, it's remember Hosea 4:6, and forget about Hanukkah. It's a farce.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, God says that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. And as a result of telling Hosea to marry a religious prostitute, God was saying, you've cheated on me by being religious. And yet, Israel may be the most religious country on earth. So they're still cheating on God by religion. And so long as Israel is religious, they have no relationship to God. The most hated people on earth by God are rabbis. And you might say, well, that's not fair. They must hate Muslims. Yeah, he does. But there would be no Muslims if it weren't for rabbis. They sold Muhammad the Talmud stories that made the Quran come across as a religious document. And you'd say, well, Christians prosecuted and persecuted Jews for 2,000 years. God must hate Christians. Yes, he does. He does. He despises them. He calls Christianity the plague of death. But there'd be no Christianity without rabbis either. They're the ones who trained Paul to cherry pick passages out of the Torah and prophets and twist them to promote a false agenda. Paul was trained as a rabbi.
Truth be told, is that the rabbis serve in an analogous way as the DNA for Christianity and Islam.
Yes, they are. They are the DNA of Christianity and Islam. And when you look at Rabbi Akiva, who's the father of rabbinical Judaism, he's the one who perpetrated another false Messiah, Bar Kokhba, and he caused the diaspora. And the Holocaust is a direct result. And so the father of your religion is an absolute fraud who was totally destructive to you. How could you be so stupid? And then you parade around thinking, well, no, we got a Star of David. No, you don't. It's the Star of Bar Kokhba. David doesn't have a star. His name is not David, it's Dowd. And by the way, he's the Messiah, and he is the Son of God, and he is the Savior, and he's the one who's coming back. You've got it all fouled up, and it's largely because the rabbis have been so disastrous to you. So where are you? You're one of those morons that's dancing about in your black morning suit and your rat hat? No. You're wearing a yarmulke because you want to emulate the Greeks? No. If you're going to a synagogue, which is a Greek word? No. If you're listening to rabbis, a word that means exalted? No. God doesn't talk about rabbis. There's no rabbi in God's story. None.
One of the most arrogant, haughty terms ever created. Rob. Great one. Exalted one.
Yeah, it's strictly arrogant. And you could take every one of the rabbis who has ever lived, and you take the sum total of all of their insights and knowledge of the Torah and prophets, and I've exceeded them 1,000,000-fold. One guy, a Nakri, an observant foreigner. They're just complete and utter frauds. They're, according to Yahweh, they're blind. They're dumb. And Israel, until you distance yourself from them, you will never be among those who are invited back into the garden. It is for the non-religious. Wasn't any religion there in Eden, was there?
No, sir.
No.
No politics, no religion, no militaries, no judicial systems. No anti-Semite.
No dress code. No dress code.
None. Yeah, no dress code. Well, you could wear a smile. Yeah. And that was really because they were comfortable in God's presence until they rebelled against him.
Yeah. Become a Yahud and give up the Judaism. It's long overdue.
Yeah. Where are you? If you call yourself a Jew, you're lost. That's not a word that God would ever use.
Even a letter.
No, there was not. In fact, the letter Jew, J for Jew, didn't even exist until the 17th century. So you can't be a Jew, not according to the Torah. If you say I'm a Jew who observes the Torah, I'm saying, no, I'm sorry, you don't, because you wouldn't call yourself a Jew. The term is Yahud. And of course, what is Yahud? It's based on two people's names. Well, a person's name and a really important individual's name.
Hello?
It's Yahweh
Mhm.
and Dowd. Yahud means Yah's beloved. So where are you? If you're political, if you're overtly political, you're overtly religious, whether you're Jewish or not, if you are Goyim or Yehudim, Yisraelite or Gentile, if you're religious, you're overtly political, then where you are is not with Yahweh. So it's rather important to understand this. So even after introducing the Ruach and in that last statement, the one that preceded this, we read that there was a spirit of this day, the Ruach of this day, and it was directly associated with the voice of Yahweh. And so now that the spirit of Yahweh, the Ruach of Yahweh has been introduced and the cool voice of Yahweh has been introduced, Yahweh reminds us that when he speaks, even here, his voice remains masculine, singular. The inclusion of the Ruach does not make God feminine, as there are some who would protest. If it were not already, this is point, game, set, match for the notion of a spirit mom speaking for anyone. We finally meet the Ruach, and Yahweh still speaks in masculine singular voice. So in this case, the verb kara, which in the imperfect conjugation is deployed to invite mankind to return to God, no matter how long it takes. There's an open invitation. That's why it was written in the imperfect conjugation. Also by kara, reading and reciting the words inscribed within the Tree of Knowledge. YadaYahowah is the Tree of Knowledge. The Choder, who has the 7 spirits of Yahweh. The Choder is identified in the 11th chapter by Yahweh himself of Isaiah as the Tree of Knowledge. He makes it emphatic that the Choder, which is a stem that is sheresh rooted and parah fruitful and productive, a netzir, an observant branch, is in fact the etz dayath, the Tree of Knowledge. So God is saying that if you want to respond to him, be called out of this world, you need to turn to and read this Tree of Knowledge, YadaYahowah, that has been provided for you. So we find God summoning us to meet on common ground. Kara serves as the verbal root of Mikra, which we have discussed. And it's the title ascribed to the 7 annual occasions to be called out and meet with God. And sadly, even in Judaism, these are not observed. They've turned Passover into a 7-day holiday, and Passover is not a 7-day holiday. How many days, JB, is Passover observed?
1 day.
1 day. How many days is matzah observed?
7.
7. And so Pesach is just the first day of matzah, isn't it?
Yep.
And they don't understand that. They don't even observe matzah. Matzah is just an ingredient. But matzah is the stem, the essential day, is it not?
Yep.
And without matzah opening the doorway to life is a negative, because you become immortal if you celebrate Passover, but you're eternally separated from God because you're still slathered with religious guilt if you don't observe matzah. And so it's really counterproductive. And so the rabbis have turned their religion into a disaster for God's people. You celebrate Passover, you don't observe matzah, your soul becomes eternally separated from God. That place is called Sheol.
It can't even go. It can't even get to first. It can't even get to first base, because in order to have, ultimately, what's most useful is binah, which is, I know, a favorite term of ours, is to make the connections, beginning with the 4th day of creation, but throughout the whole Torah, Prophet, and Psalms, binah, 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 and
without it, you like can't figure it out. Yeah,
it's like the rabbis are anti-binah.
It's one of the things we've been talking about, Jeff, is that you could present, and you tried to do this, JB, as I did once. You can present more accurate and complete renderings of God's testimony based upon the oldest manuscripts, and people might know what God said. But knowing is not even 1% of the journey. Understanding is what matters. And you can't understand until you know, but knowing is all about Binah, making these connections. Byen and Binah, when it's associated with the Spirit, is making the connections necessary to comprehend. And that's what we're doing now. We're sharing an understanding of these situations. So it should be obvious here, but the fact is that the Etz Chaim fulfilled. This is the tree of lives. It's plural of life. Chai is life. Chaim would be plural lives. And the man representing the Etz Chaim, the greater luminary, fulfilled the first 3 Mow'ed Mikre, adding to our lives. He opened the door to life by being crucified on Passover, just as he told us he would 1,000 years in advance of enduring it. And the Etz Dayath, he will fulfill the next 2 Moedim, providing the knowledge to cultivate those harvests of Shavua and Towrah, enabling both of those ingatherings. And then Dowd will return on the 6th Mikre of Kippurim. Yada will resume his role, providing instruction in the garden during the 7th Mow'ed of Sukkah, and will be accompanied by the cast of characters we see here, harvesting and sharing that fruit. We will work together as a team. And the team is comprised of 8 people because God's schedule contains an 8th day. This is the time that we're released to go off and explore the universe.
Noah started over with 8.
Yes, he did. Yeah, 8 is essential. How many days are there of Sukkah?
8 days.
8 days.
8 days.
And how many people are identified that are harvested that will continue to engage on Shavua and Towrah and then on Sukkah again?
Yeah.
8 people.
8 people. Yeah, 8 people. And so it's all symbolic of what God is trying to deliver. And if you don't want to be part of it, you may want to retire now, because it's job security. That's the good thing. But the employment contract goes through the next 1,000 years. So it's 8 years between now and then, and 1,000 years thereafter. So it is job security. But you better like the work. You better like the people you're working with. Because it's going to be a long haul. But just think of the dividends. I mean, everybody that is part of the Shavua harvest will be there because we did our job. Yep. And the same thing will be true on the Towrah ingathering, and it will be true with those who are purged of the religious guilt on Towrah by the Adam of Parah, and it'll be true when they have a chance to celebrate Dowd's return with YAHOWAH, and then everybody who is allowed into and then later out of the garden is going to benefit from the work we do.
Speaking of Binah, fellas, and Leah, looking at Mizmor 6, look at what Dowd says about the octave, the 8th octave.
Yeah, the 8th octave. He introduces it. He says, this is all about the 8th octave, the time beyond the time. We have it's a 7,000-year plan that God instituted. We're 8 years shy of 6,000 years through it, from the time we were escorted out of the garden to the time that we will return to the garden in 8 years. And then we have 1,000 years to celebrate education in the garden and equipping this mortal remnant of Yisrael to become covenant and leave this planet with YAHOWAH, which is a marvelous opportunity. And then we will spend all eternity together. So this is the story that YAHOWAH was telling. And the Etz Dayath is the knowledge that will get you back to the tree of lives. And it means that everybody is given the opportunity to live 2 lives, this life and an eternal life thereafter. So it's a marvelous gift that is being offered. So should you want to be among the beneficiaries, I would follow Yahweh's advice. I would consider this as your opportunity. I would capitalize now. I would start reading and reciting what you learn. Go to YadaYah.com, read these books, listen to the Yahweh blog, capitalize, because chances are you will not be one of the survivors if you don't of the next 8 years. Huge percentage of this planet's going to die. 2 out of every 3 Jews, and I think they're going to fare better than people on as a whole. Man's going to do awful things. There is going to be nuclear war. The planet will be in upheaval. So now is your time to respond. To link in your life assurance policy. Kevin, you and I were talking about the fact that I've gone now 12 years without health insurance. I used to have it back in the time I had my farm, and when I sold it to my ex, I've gone all of this time without it. I tried 1 year of Obamacare, and it was horrendous. And I said, I think I'd rather face the consequence than have to endure any of this nonsense. But I have a better plan than health insurance. I have life assurance. Mm-hmm. And it's worked out marvelously. I've never regretted a moment of it under this circumstance.
And Yah doesn't charge a premium.
Yes. Yeah.
No deductibles.
No deductible. No deductible. Absolutely no deductible, and no premium. He does expect you to work and make a contribution. So it's not totally free. You're going to be a worker. You're going to make a contribution to the whole thing, but you're going to gain more from your contribution than anybody else. So even that works out, and the dividends are great. So if you contribute, which we're going to have contributed 1,000 years here, plus by that time I'll have had 40 in. You get infinite number of years back, so it's a pretty good dividend. I would say it's a really nice return on investment.
Yeah, as Kevin says, just a parody off that is that it's not deductible; it's an inductible.
It's an inductible, yeah, it is. Yeah, no matter how hard we work and dedicate ourselves to Yahweh, He is more dedicated to us than we possibly can be to Him. As much as we work for Him, He works harder for us. He made the decision long ago that He was going to accomplish everything that was meaningful through the people He had created. And He finds it interesting. He finds us interesting. I think I mentioned earlier that God's not looking for perfection, but He is looking for devotion. And by devotion, it's not praying to Him. It's not worshiping. It's devotion is dedication. A willingness to make a contribution to work, and when you stumble, get up. But the reason God's not interested in perfection is it would be boring as all get out. It'd be a different version of the garden, but I don't think that Adam was created flawed, and so he would have been as perfect as a human being could possibly be, with perfect genome and all that sort of thing, and probably perfect diction and the like. And yet he was totally boring to God. So God's not looking for perfection. Look at Dowd, God's chosen one, His beloved. He was the antithesis of perfect, right? But he was right with God and vindicated by God and is our Savior. And so it tells you that God is looking for interesting, intelligent, devoted, dedicated, willing to work, responsive, observant, reliable. But certainly not perfect. And this is something that the religious in particular stumble on. Even those who are covenant but have come out of religion, they still stumble on this. We see it all the time with people like when God chooses to speak through someone, even as a prophet. And I make the comment, that just because they're a prophet doesn't mean that everything they say is correct. And they just say, whoa, how's that possible? They have to be perfect. No, they don't. Moshe was the greatest of the Nabi, the prophets. And I'm going to tell you for certain, he said some stuff that was really regrettable. When he had the meltdown and tell Yahweh, you might as well kill me because these people are impossible. Or when Yahweh had to convince his wife to circumcise his son because Moshe didn't get around to it. I mean, Moshe was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And we know the greatest man who's ever lived, Dowd, boy, did he make his share of mistakes and admitted them, but he grew from them. And
that
so
was
God's looking for
exemplified in
intimacy.
2 Sam 6, as we've elaborated multiple times. 2 Sam 6 demonstrates that in over and over again.
Yes. And in 2 Sam 6, Dowd got upset with Yahweh and gave up on the transport of the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem because a man that was renamed a woman, the first transgender operation, I guess, in history, God killed when he interfered with the transport of the Ark of the Covenant. It was being pulled by a bull, and the bull is God's symbol of the last sacrifice of the man who serves as the Adam of Parah, this man from Edom. And so he interfered with that and tried to grab control of the ark. And God says, no. I'm trying to show you prophetically what's going to happen, and you're interfering with it. You're dead. We're not going to. This is life and death for the planet, and we're certainly not going to risk that for one guy that now is a woman trying to assert her influence. You're dead. And Dowd didn't like that. And he just said, I'm not going to play then. I'm going to go away. I don't know how to move the ark any further. And I'm just going to leave it right here. And I'm going to go pout. And that's basically what Dowd did. He was angry with God. And so God had to set him down. And we had a little chat. And God used a verb that says he made it absolutely clear to Dowd what was happening. And what he did is he placed Obed-Edom, a man who works from Edom. It's a cognate of not only work, but of Adam and the Adam of Parah. And he had this man supervise the transport of the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. And when Dowd saw that God had arranged Obed-Edom to handle this, and he recognized this was prophetic of what's going to happen in the end, because as Yashayah says, the man from Edom is going to save many. And he is the final Zeroah. He is the one cultivating this harvest. And he is the Adam of Parah, this bloody red man of the earth who is a productive bull. That Dowd says, oh, okay, well, Yahweh's going to reposition this ark for me. And therefore, I can celebrate that he has provided someone to do what needs to be done, that's going to bring the Ark of the Covenant into the proper place under the tent of the restoring witness on the Temple Mount, so that when I return as king on Kippurim, it's there for me to anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. And that bull is going to supply the blood to anoint the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. And also that bull is going to prepare the remnant of Yisrael so that they can welcome me and my father Yahweh home. When God explained the story, he decided to celebrate. And not only did Dowd put on the ephod, the symbol of the high priest, which is he's going to serve as the high priest when he returns to anoint the mercy seat, the Kipporeth of the Ark of the Covenant, on Kippurim, and keeping with the Torah's instructions, and the bull's going to provide the blood. The rest of him was bare-ass naked, and he was celebrating. And why was he bare-ass naked and celebrating on Kippurim? You know why?
Yeah, because he got it. I'm comfortable with God. I get it. Yeah. Someone else gets to do all the work. This is my day. I'm gonna party.
My day. And oh, by the way, we're going back to Eden. What was the dress code in Eden?
No pants.
You're right. No pants optional, right? And so he was trying to tell us, I'm going to complete this story. Now that God's explained it to me, we're going back to Eden. I feel comfortable exposed to Yahweh. I understand exactly what he is going to do. And that became now one of the most important prophecies in the writings in 2 Samuel 6. And of course, what follows, where Dowd is saying, okay, now we've done all this. I've got this lovely house of cedar. I need to build a house of cedar for God. He's out there living under the curtains. And God says, hey,
Did I ask for a house?
No.
Did I ask
ever asked for a house?
Huh?
Do you think that when I was with the children of Israel and I took them out of the house of slavery
Uh-huh.
and to lead them to this promised land, do you think that if I wanted a house, I would have asked for a house of cedar somewhere along the way?
Somewhere.
Maybe you've got this wrong, Kit. Maybe you don't recognize who's the son and who's the father. But let me remind you, you are my son. I am your father. And I am responsible for your seat of honor in your throne. And I'm going to establish them. And then you're going to come back as the king of forevermore. This is how this is going to work.
You know what just struck me, Craig? And fellas, tell me if you agree or not, is that we all know who Obed Edom is. Mm-hmm. But for the second time that I can recall, on Yom Teruah, you have a solar eclipse.
Yes, we do.
But here again, Yah uses an example that the lesser luminary is used to teach the greater luminary something, and he goes along with it. Yeah,
in this case, the lesser and greater luminary, one of the things that I was unaware of until I just retranslated it, is that the lesser luminary isn't just presented as the Katan Mayor, the lesser luminary. God actually begins the discussion by saying both of the luminaries, they're great. So the greater luminary is great, but the lesser luminary, from God's point of view, he is worthy. He is important to God's story, and he says so. And so what you're talking about here is that just because the lesser luminary is the choder, which is the stem, and Dowd's the shamak, the big branch, and that Dowd is the king and the Yada is his herald, it doesn't mean that they don't have a collaboration. It's just as Yahweh enjoyed engaging with Dowd and Dowd's contribution to the relationship, the same thing is going to be true between the two of us. I'm not going to be just a megaphone for the king's pronouncements. There will be times where I'll say, "Hey, Dowd, we went through this once before, and I've thought this one through, and I think you may want to play it this way. You're king, you get to make the call, but maybe you want to think this one through. I think there's a better way to go." And Obed Edom played that role with Dowd. And you look at Yeshayah, the great prophet, when he sees the man from Edom, dressed in red, who saves many. Yeshayah, Isaiah is ecstatic. He says, "That's my Zeroah. That's the guy that is harvesting everything that I have planted and cultivated." And he is ecstatic. He says, he's in that wine vat with me. Oh, by the way, that wine vat is the same wine vat that's associated with Obed Edom in that story. He is from the wine vat. And then Yeshayah says, oh, yeah, he is right there in that wine vat with me. And I've been doing this all alone, and now I have a coworker. And so just as the man from Edom is the coworker of Yeshayah, Isaiah, he is also the coworker of Dowd. Just as Dowd is the co-worker of Yahweh, Dowd's no dummy. If he can be the co-worker of Yahweh, and Yahweh can delegate management of the universe through Dowd, which is his intent, then Dowd's going to delegate too. And by the way,
Dowd surrounds themselves with yes men. They want people who are going to challenge them when they think they're wrong.
When I introduced you in this program, and I said, one of the things that I liked most about our relationship is that you not only were comfortable challenging a conclusion that I had drawn, but that you did so in a way that once we worked through our differences, we had more respect for one another rather than less.
Yeah.
That's exactly how that relationship's supposed to work.
What's amazing is, just like you're saying with JB, Dowd got it. He learned, and he accepted it, and he took it, and he was better for the better for it. And the synergy is just amazing.
Yeah, he was more reliable, more confident. Having overcome a mistake, he was more reliable and more confident and more capable than he ever would have been without the mistake, which again affirms that God is not looking for perfect. He's looking for interesting. He's looking for committed. He's looking for confident. He likes Gabor. I mean, you can tell the things that he likes. He likes Chakma. He's fond of Chakma. He doesn't want dummies. He gave us an Asama so we can be Chakma. That means intelligent. He likes Byen, and he gives us this ability to transition from knowing to understanding by making the necessary connections. Dowd was spectacular at it.
He did.
And doing that, you can become Sadak, right, which Dowd was.
Absolutely. And as opposed to militarism, Dowd did not pull rank. He accepted the correction and the instruction.
He did, always, and appropriately, and grew as a result of it. But Dowd was no pacifist. He wasn't, humbly, modestly accepting the correction. He was bold about it. When he disagreed with God, he said, "No, I don't like that." And then when he agreed, dancing with the ephod, bare ass naked, and when his wife Michael challenged him and said, "No, you don't. You're a fraud. You don't actually represent any of these things you're claiming. All of the stuff that you claim is special between you and Yahweh, and that He has chosen you for all of these things. You're lying. You're not anything near what you claim to be. You're not kabod. That's for darn sure. You've embarrassed yourselves even with the concubines." And Dowd said, "Okay, well, you think I've embarrassed myself with the concubines? I'm not kabod. Then since you've mentioned the concubines, so we're going to go. I'll go meet with the concubines now, and we'll let them decide if I'm kabod or not."
Yep.
It's that takes some confidence. You don't pull that off without some moxie. I mean, that's at the level of Eliah when you're in front of the king, and the king says, "You are the great troubler of Israel," and you come right back and said, "No, I'm not the troubler of Israel. You're the troubler of Israel." And then when you're dealing with the 850 prophets of the Lord and of Asherah, the queen of heaven and the mother of God, the mother goddess, and you said, "I think your God's in the crapper. Let's give him some time. All gods have to take a crap every once in a while, and maybe that's where your God is." Oh, your God's really old. I know you've been touting him for a long time. He's probably taking a nap. Gods get old, and they need a nap. So we'll wait for your God to finish his nap. It takes some chutzpah, it takes some confidence to get to
Yah
that level.
Yah said, "That's my prick."
That's my guy, man. That's my guy. Oh yeah, he actually said my prick, because when God's talking about the four leaders that emerged from Eden, the third of the four, the Kishon, is my prick. He is he's the thorn in the side. He's my guy to goad them, and he did, and he was spectacular at it. And you say, okay, so not only was Eliah willing to engage and to do the work and prepared, I mean, to have that soliloquy that he did, and to mock the Lord and Asherah the way he did through his speech, took lots of preparation. He had to think it through. He had to know the faults of the religions of the Canaanites and the Phoenicians that had been brought into Israel, and to have the confidence to confront them that way. He was prepared, and God loved it. So if you think that being sarcastic is something that God doesn't like, and of being uncompromising is something that God doesn't like, well, think again. He told us that I like this so much, I'm taking this guy to be with me, and I'm bringing him back when it counts. And guess who's going to be the man who officiates the sacrifice of the bull, which is exactly what he oversaw, was the sacrifice of the bull on that day. So he's rehearsed. Bringing him back to reenact the exact same thing that he did, and while excoriating religion and politics.
Yeah, I'd like to make it clear to everyone that this is family hour. I use the term prick as Yah meant it to be, not in a pejorative common day parlance. That
is correct. Yeah, that's we laugh at it because it is used in a common parlance, but the term prick was to be this thorn that is used to goad those who are religious and political, and
Exactly.
the sarcasm of Elia was in fact that sharp point that popped their balloon, if you will. He was spectacular at it, and he pierced them. In fact, all of them would die as a result. He was so piercing of the religious and political lives of his people. So no, Yahweh was using it the same way. He was impressed with him. It wasn't negative in any shape or form. So as we continue with our analysis of what God just said, nothing, perhaps it's a small thing amongst all the big insights, but I happen to notice that the interrogatory I is often transliterated as IY as opposed to EY, but it's the same presentation, same letters in Hebrew. And it does more than just ask where or which one or why questions, which is how I translated in the previous statement. And it seeks actually to find the reason behind certain events, but it also designates an island. An I is an island, a relatively small piece of land surrounded by water. I think in the Ocean Studio earlier today, you see that we, in fact, live on an island surrounded by the sea. Mm-hmm. And that is particularly relevant because prophetically, I is used to describe the coastlines of America, mm-hmm. where I came from and where 40% of Jews live today. These are the places from which Yahweh has proclaimed through Yahshua that he will be gathering his people. So when he says, where are you? It's a prophecy. It's where I am and where they are. So that they're ready for the upcoming Kara, this Mikra. There are multiple layers to everything God says. And the more you know, the more you intelligently process the information and make the proper connections to understand, the more you comprehend. And so there's multiple layers to all of this. So, of course, we must ask, where are you? Are you with Adam and Chawah and estranged from God?
No, sir.
Or are you with the Etz Chaim and the Etz Dayath, who provide the means to return to Yah? Are you attuned to the Kara, the invitations to read God's testimony and to meet with him, as they are proclaimed and fulfilled by the Bashar Herald, who as Yada is the Kol voice calling out to you? Do you know how many times Bashar Herald was used in the preceding text? Like 10. And Yada was introduced several times in the preceding text. And the preceding text also mentioned the Kol voice of God. All of these are prophetic titles of the very thing we're doing right now. Fulfilling the Kara invitations, providing that which you need to read, pursuant to God's testimony to meet with him, being offered by Yada, the one who knows, as the Bashar, the human herald, who is currently the Kol, the voice of God calling out to you. There is, of course,
the Etz, and how the Etz becomes the Etzah.
Yes.
How the
it's profound. There are so many words. Adam and Adamah. You add to Adam with Adamah to make it the bloody red man of the earth, as opposed to just man. So Adamah speaks of this bloody red man of the earth who will serve as the man from Edom that Yahweh says he's dressed in red. And he's going to save many. And then the Adamah Parah is the one that is considered to be the red heifer, and he's not a girly cow. It means the Parah is another one of these. It's par, and as Parah, it goes from bull to productive and fruitful bull. And so Adam and Adamah, par and Parah, are examples of the same thing that Etzah and Etz represent. As Etz, it's a tree. As Etzah, it's the means to provide counsel and advice on the entirety of the story, framing everything that God is presented to us in this portrait of life. so that you're in a position where you can respond appropriately. That is why it's the ruach of Etzah, pursuant to the Choder, as he becomes the Dayath, the ruach of Dayath of the tree of knowledge. And so you are correct. There is far more than simply going from masculine to feminine in these things. In fact, there's probably nothing associated with the feminine at all with them. It's just the expansion of what they represent when you go from Adam to Adamah, Par to Parah, and this is particularly important because it's the Adamah Parah. And you do the same the thing with Etz to Etzah.
Yeah. Circling back to Byen and Binah, it's the same.
Yeah, Byen becomes Binah when it's enabled by the Ruach of YAHOWAH. And Chakma is already given that full implication of the ending. But what is the ending? It's when you have the suffix of the there you go. Standing up, reaching up, pointing up to man. In fact, the letter is literally defined as pay attention, as behold. And so that H at the end, the hey, is there's an observant man, standing up, not bowed down, reaching up,
Engage.
not his hands are not out. He's not asking for money, not asking for a handout. His hands are up, reaching up, pointing up to God. And so this is a man standing up for God, reaching up to God, looking up to God, encouraging you to pay attention to God, is the difference between Adam and Adamah, between Par and Parah, between Etz and Etzah. And and if you want to take some of the feminine concept, it's a masculine word, a masculine title that is blended with a feminine ending, such that you're taking the best of men and women. I think Dowd was probably the greatest at this in human history. He was a man that was full intellectually and also full emotionally. He was the epitome of heart and head. I don't see myself in that same capacity. I'm far more head than I am heart. But Dowd, I think, is a man who was probably 80% head and 20% heart, and I might be 90-10. But that is what that ending would also be. It blend the best of what God would say about women being more emotional, which is a very important thing. Love is an emotion. And man being more cerebral, that's a very important thing. Intelligent, making, understanding, knowing, those kinds of things. And combined, we're much better than we would be with one without the other. I mean, we have a number of people that have been very influential people today that are very influential that have no empathy. And I don't care how bright you are. If you have no empathy, you really are a dangerous individual. And so you need both. And the ending suggests that these individuals that God wants to deploy under those titles have both head and heart that are in the game. And clearly, what I would describe myself as more head than heart. I want to tell you, you better have your heart in the game if you're going to devote yourself to this job. It's a tough damn job.
Yeah, it's in that way. Look at the difference between how your writing work, which is very analytical, whereas Dowd wrote poetry and lyrics.
That's correct.
Yeah, that's much more an emotional way of writing.
Yeah, and when you read too of Dowd's lyrics, he's both exceedingly loving and talking about God being love and the loving nature of the generosity and kindness of God, but the vitriol that flows out of his mouth, he is really angry too, and anger is an emotion. He despises those who have deprived of his accomplishments and his people of what he achieved for them. And so Dowd's poetry, his songs, his lyrics, his prose is very emotionally charged.
Isn't one of the definitions of Dowd's name? It's like beloved,
Yeah,
passionate.
Yeah, he's passionate. Yeah. In fact, it says that he was a man after God's heart, but even then, Leb and Hebrew didn't mean this thing as a sense of a center of emotion. That was the kidneys of the day. The heart was the seat of judgment. So it means that his judgment was similar to God's, and judgment is a more cerebral matter. Dowd's intellect is second to none. Dowd was exceedingly bright. So he is a man that, on a 1 to 10 scale of intellect is a full 10, and a man whose emotional makeup and compassion for his people is a full 10. So he's working on all possible cylinders. He's really an extraordinary individual in this regard.
Was the seat of emotion? Was it the liver or the kidney? But it was the liver.
Liver, I guess. Yeah, it's the liver.
Okay.
Kidneys or the liver? Which one is it?
I think the liver.
The liver. It's the
You
liver.
think it's the liver? Okay. Yep. So you liver. What is the slogan that if you're a slimy person, you're
Yellow bellied and
yellow belly liver something. I've forgotten what the.
I know what. Yeah.
First nerds are always down here.
Yeah. So anyway, it's not the heart is the center of judgment. It speaks of your inclinations, your motivations, and that sort of thing. So
lily livered.
There he is.
Good.
I'm not
That's
sure.
Mora. That's not me. That's Mora.
Okay, there you go. So there is, of course, as we think of this, Adam's option, even if it assures banishment from the garden on the cusp of the return. And this was Adam's response. He said, "So your voice, Ethkol, I heard. Within Hagan, this enclosed, sheltered, and protective garden. And I was concerned. I was even afraid. I was frightened. I was distressed due to my recognition, this is YAHOWAH, of your awesome stature. So I was intimidated." He was never intimidated previously, was he? But he was intimidated now. Called imperfect, first person singular, because I was naked and exposed. For having sought to be crafty and shrewd. It's Iram, Anoki. Anoki means I, and Iram is I was unprotected and improperly covered. It is from Aram, which was I was trying to be clever. I was trying to be a bit devious. So it's not just that he was naked and exposed, but when you look at the verbal root, he was trying to be a little crafty, a little shrewd. Didn't work out real well for him. He wasn't good at shrewd.
One went over on YAHOWAH.
Yeah, I have occasionally, just to keep it entertaining between us, I try to spar with YAHOWAH from now and again. I don't do it very often, but sometimes you just gotta try. And my ongoing battles with the platypus, and I have acknowledged I've probably lost that one, but it's each time that we have a little sparring match, his comeback is spectacular. He is really good at the sarcastic comebacks. And so I've just learned that you can do it and have fun with him because he does like to engage that way, but don't expect to win.
Where do you think you're going?
Oh, I know. That was one of the first questions I asked when Leah and I had met, and we had just picked up Asher, and we said, what's going to happen to Asher on Towrah? And when we leave, and he says, "So where do you think you're going?" Come to find out, I'm not going anywhere on Towrah. I'm the sacrifice on Towrah. And that was, wow, what a line, and how it turned out. And when I said to God, I don't want to have to go back and rewrite Prophet of Doom. And now, and I said, God, you don't want me to do that. We can write another volume of Coming Home. That's so much more fun. I don't want to go into hell again and write about Muhammad and Allah. They're really disgusting. But, I understand that Israel needs the help. They need to know that Islam is their enemy, and they need to know about this enemy, because otherwise they're going to lash out at a symptom in Hamas, and it's going to make a bad situation worse. But God, I don't really want to do that. And do I have to? And God says, I have taken care of you. Now you take care of my people. And you look around, you say, well, it's a pretty beautiful place. I'm here supported by wonderful mayors. They've got to get the best wife ever. And okay. Yep. He is taking care of me. I'm going to take care of his people. I get it. You just, it's like when I had the 3 requests of when Yahweh first introduced himself 24 years ago. And I said, okay, I'm having a conversation with you. So you know who I am. And so I'm going to have to assume that you really are who you say you are, and that you're God. It's okay if we negotiate, because what you're asking me to do, no one has ever survived before. So can I negotiate with you? Absolutely. Have at it. So I come up with my 3 negotiating points, and he says, okay, reach into your pocket. There was the answer to all 3 of them. I mean, he's just giggling. He says, okay, I wrote the answer 3,000 years ago, waiting for you to play this game. Was it fun? Did you enjoy it?
Miss More 91.
Yeah. Oh, of course. The conversation he had already answered this conversation 3,000 years ago. It's, Psalm 91.
Yeah,
I think he probably got a kick out of it. He says, okay, I got to play that punchline. It's been a long time, but
been waiting on that one.
I've been waiting on that one. So, okay. Yeah, you clever. Clever. Make a note to self. Don't challenge God. Well, you can challenge him. It's just that you better expect that he's going to be sharper than we are. And I guess that's the way you'd like your God. I'd like my God to be much smarter than me and more clever than me and the like. Because I need to rely on him. So he said, so your voice I heard within the GAN, this enclosed, sheltered, and protected garden. And I was concerned. I was even fearful. I was because I was naked and exposed, having sought to be crafty and shrewd. So I withdrew, having removed myself. I moved away, retreating so as not to be discovered. It was written in the Niphal imperfect, first person singular. The Niphal means I did this to myself. And the Niphal stem, the subject causes this to happen, and he suffers the effect of the verb. So removal and being withdrawn is something that Adam both caused, and he suffered the result when it's written in the Niphal stem. The imperfect means with ongoing implications over time. So the beauty of Hebrew grammar, it's one of the great gifts to us, and what you can ascertain when you understand the stems and the conjugations and the moods and the like. So sometimes I would say little things matter. He said was scribed in the imperfect, meaning that there would be ongoing implications of the statement, I heard. It was written in the perfect conjugation, revealing that he would not listen long. This is the opposite approach that Yahweh was seeking from him and from us. Life is better when we continually listen to God as if it were scribed in the imperfect, and when we infrequently interrupt the lesson by speaking over him. Now, we're talking about having fun and sparring with God, and occasionally we'll do it, but it's like once every 6 months that I will attempt it, and only in good fun, because the rest of the time it's listening.
What's the score?
The score? Well, I've lost every round, and I'm actually delighted to lose every round. Wouldn't you be concerned if you were representing a God and actually going to sacrifice your physical body for a God that wasn't much smarter than
Good point.
than I am?
Get one over on, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You're delighted to lose, and sometimes you're humored to lose because he's got a pretty good wit about him. There's a reason that he picked Elia as his guy. I'm not sure there's a lot of difference in the personalities. And you look at Dowd. I mean, he was quick-witted, and he would turn the screws to you. And so I think there's a lot of commonality in personality personality types. And, I keep on telling you that, there's introverts and extroverts, and I'm an introvert that trained himself to be, to function as an extrovert. I'm really an introvert that just learned how to function as an extrovert because I didn't like being an introvert. Yahweh, I think, is basically an introvert. He's not looking for a whole lot of people to be around him. I think he enjoys small gatherings much more than large gatherings. So prior to, I would say, this defiant episode, Adam was comfortable being fully exposed to God, as we've shared. And now that he had decided that his preferences were more important than Yahweh's instructions, well, he was concerned. And with a lot more than being just naked. Ultimately, there would only be three ways for us to perceive God. We could either respect him, we could fear him, or we can show indifference towards him. Those who listen and respond to his instructions will grow to respect Yahweh. The more I've learned about Yahweh, even when we spar, the more I respect him. Mm-hmm. Those who reject him should be concerned that they will be rejected by him. And those who remain clueless regarding Yahweh because they're religious or political or whatever their indoctrination will be, will never be bothered by him. That's the fairness of the whole thing, that God is not going to punish those who don't know him and he doesn't know them. If you've just been misled and you've not misled others, then the end of your life is the end of your life. You're not going to be bothered by God, just as you weren't bothered to know him. Now, speaking of Irem, it is kissing cousin to which is jackass, by the way, and which is anxiety and anguish, and concentration of people. The verbal root is likely aram, meaning to be crafty and shrewd. But if that was the plan, then this jackass was now anxious and anguished for having been insufficiently clever to spar with God. And when you spar with God, you need to know that he does respect clever. And he's got no problem with being sarcastic and clever. But you better know who you're sparring with. So just for fun, and sometimes even out of exasperation, I try to match wits with God in some clever fashion from time to time, and always in good fun and in otherwise typically meaningless issues. But no surprise, he wins every round, and we've got to be thrilled that he does, because if God was no smarter than me, then we would have a whole bit of trouble here, because every time, like, I look at his testimony, every time I go through it, I learn more, which means that he's not reading my testimony and say, hey, kid, that was really smart. I learned something there. No, it's the other way around.
Oh, so it's not like Paul's God who couldn't come up with a plan, so he had to get Paul to come up with a plan for him?
Well, that's pathetic, isn't it? I mean, that's the essence of Christianity. Paul says that God couldn't save anyone. And so he called Paul, who was a sexual pervert and a irrational, demon-possessed loser, and said to Paul, since I failed, why don't you create a plan that's faith-based? Mine was knowledge-based, and it didn't work out. So I'm going to let you completely contradict everything I stood for.
Right.
Now,
yeah. I was going to negate 19:7.
Yeah.
Mizmor 19:7, where he calls his testimony perfect.
Yes. And ideal for restoring. Yeah, ideal for restoring the soul. And God's quite clear about the enduring relevance of his Torah as well. Look at Jeremiah 31. When God restores the covenant, one of the things he's going to do is to write his Torah inside of us. And you're not moving away from the Torah. You're not negating the Torah if your final move on behalf of your people is to write your Torah inside of them into the very fabric of their lives. So the whole concept of negating the Torah is absurd. And what Paul, of course, didn't know, is because gospel Jesus wouldn't be created until after Paul's death, is that gospel Jesus said exactly the opposite of what Paul said relative to the Torah. So
thanks to the Ebenim.
Ebenim, yeah, we love the Ebenim, having recorded the Sermon on the Mount, and then having Eusebius not be bright enough to know that Sermon on the Mount destroys the entire credibility of his religion. So people have not been very bright very long. So reinforcing my earlier assessment of the garden parting being mutual, as I've shared in the Niphal Imperfect, Adam was aware of the ongoing consequence of his actions, and he proceeded anyway. With the Niphal stem, the subject carries out and receives the action of the verb, which was to withdraw. So someone as wise as Yahweh asks questions because he wants us to ponder the implications of the answer. It can be a marvelous way to encourage us to think and to be accountable. And so God asked the following question. He said, who informed you, reporting to you that you were naked and exposed, even crafty and shrewd? Might it have come from the tree, which for the benefit of the relationship, I instructed you not to be defined by consuming and devouring it? Barashith, in the beginning, Genesis 3:11. The tree told him. So how could the tree tell him unless the tree is a person? The tree told him. God said, did you learn that you were naked as a result of the tree? My beautiful wife just arrived back in her seat, and of course the idea of representing the tree and saying that who instructed you that you were naked? That's one of the beauties of being husband and wife. You get to have those kind of discussions. But here's God saying to Adam, might it have come from the tree? Men ha'etz. The tree was the one who informed him that he was naked, that he was now exposed to God in a way that was really uncomfortable. So he was munching away on the tree
gorging himself
of knowledge, gorging himself on it. And it was that knowledge that he had gained that said, I'm exposed. Because
I know a woman who gorged on the tree and became a fatling sister who rebelled.
Yeah, we do. So might it have come from the tree, which for the benefit of the relationship, I instructed you not to be defined by consuming from it and devouring it. And this was written, the blithe akal, not to be negated by what you eat. It was in the call infinitive. I just love the infinitive because it is a verbal noun, which means that when it is written as the infinitive, like the participle, what it says is that this verb is also a noun, and therefore you will be defined
by that which you eat.
By what you eat. And he had now defined himself by what he had eaten. The tree indeed was telling him that you're exposed.
I'll tell you, you're naked too.
You will. Okay. Yeah.
If that's the case.
If that's the case. Devouring it. It's beautifully written. It tells you exactly what was going on. So it was not Yahweh who told Adam that he was naked.
No.
Nope. It was
nope. Can't blame her.
The tree that revealed that to him.
You can blame Yada.
Yeah.
He's blaming me.
Yeah.
With inadequate knowledge, insufficient life experiences, and exposed to the elements for the first time, once the protective covering of the garden had been removed, the man and woman in the garden did what religious people have done throughout the ages.
Make shit up.
They tried to conceal themselves. They didn't like being exposed to God. Nakedness did not appeal to them. Previously comfortable without clothing and appreciating the attractiveness of their bodies, open sensuality became the first casualty of only knowing enough to be dangerous.
That's my line.
Every religion would establish a dress code, with some forcing women to walk around in tents and another requiring them to shave their heads. Boy, there's a lesson in that, isn't there?
No joke.
The last thing Adam wanted to hear, especially perched in the tree as he was to be reminded that he had been asked to refrain from habitually eating from it. It was the first "I told you so" ever recorded. And even then, with God being none too subtle with his line of questioning, man's retort was to shift the blame. We humans have never been very good at accepting responsibility, have we?
Not likely. No.
And he doesn't answer the question either. He dodges the question.
Yeah.
God's the one. Yahweh answers the question. Who told you? And,
Who told you?
Yahweh fills in the answer. But when
was it the
Adam
tree?
retorts,
Exactly. Yeah. The rhetoric, I love Yah's rhetorical question.
Mm-hmm. Then the man said, the woman who to enjoy the relationship you gave to me, to be with me. She gave it to me, offering it to me from the Etz tree. So I started eating and I did not stop. Oh, you little jerk, you. So not only is he blaming the woman as opposed to accepting responsibility, Yahweh told him exactly what he should and should not do, what he could. And in fact, he didn't say you can't eat from the tree. He just says, if you continually eat from that tree, you're going to die.
He was concerned.
And so that means you're not going to live forever. If you continually eat from that tree, that's what he did. And so he alone is responsible for the consequence. And what did he do? He not only tried to blame the woman, but he said, you gave her to me. It's your fault. I've sparred with Yahweh for fun. I have never said, Yahweh, it's your fault. That's pushing it pretty damn far. It's your fault. No.
That's the first example of a straw man argument, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Probably also a non sequitur. The woman you gave me had nothing to do with what transpired. The straw man, the case he was making was not based on reality. He was conceiving an argument based on an artificial construct. And maybe even argumentum by distraction. He didn't want to answer the question that Yahweh asked. Mm-hmm. So he gave changed the subject. It was your fault. You gave her to me.
He keeps digging. He keeps digging and digging.
Wow. Now, to Adam's credit, it was true in the sense of, but to his shame, it was also wrong because he failed to be accountable or responsible. Yes, Yahweh gave man the gift of woman. Best gift ever. But he gave us so much more. He gave us a nephesh soul to observe and respond to the world around us. And he offered us an asama, conscience and free will, so that we could make responsible choices. And then he gave us his Torah, his guidance, so that we would make the most of our opportunity.
Okay, I got a few questions. So, gave us an asama.
Mm-hmm.
We destroyed that.
Boy, we have.
Gave us a garden. Yeah, we walked away from that.
Yes.
Gave us a covenant. Yeah, we spit on that too.
Yes, you did.
And let me see, gave us his son. We rejected that.
Yeah.
A plan. We rejected that. What is different today than the guy we're talking about right now?
Nothing.
No.
Man has...
Modern man is apathetic Adam.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, modern man is Adam. But not all. Dowd set the example, and
the vast majority.
We have recognized the example that Dowd has set, and we've been listening to God and devoted to it, and we are offering the opportunity to come back into the garden. So God is playing for keeps this time, and there's not going to be another redo. You're either going to benefit.
This is the redo.
Yeah,
of the redo.
Well, this is it. This is the final one. This is your second chance.
Last chance for romance.
Last call. You're either going to be in or you are out. And so God gave everything that Adam needed. A nephesh to observe and respond, a nesama to think, conscious, to make intelligent decisions, the Torah instructions and guidance to know what was conducive and not conducive. And he blew it all.
Including the woman, because he's done nothing but abuse her.
I think that he probably did a very poor job of fulfilling his role of sharing what Yahweh said. Now, he clearly told Chawah that, we can't make a habit from eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because she knew it. She recited the line.
She apparently didn't care.
But he didn't make it a priority in their relationship. He never invited Chawah to anything that we can see that had anything to do with God. So they both shortchanged their opportunity. So in his reply, Adam was trying to shift blame, which humans are very good at doing, to God as well as to Chawah, suggesting that it was God's fault for having provided the woman, and it was the woman's fault for having handed him the fruit. But keeping it real, it was Adam's fault for not only ignoring God's instructions, but for doing expressly what he had been warned against. He didn't just
what Leah says is so true, though. Majority of men and women have not only done what Adam has done, they've quadrupled down on it.
Well, Adam was even quadrupling down on it. As we found out in the previous statement, he was still sitting in the tree.
Yeah.
He wasn't among the trees of the garden.
No,
he was singular. He was sitting in the midst of that tree,
munching away.
Munching away, man. Oh yeah, he was total disregard in your face. It's as if I had, for example, when I didn't want to have to go back and rewrite Prophet of Doom, which is the only book I hadn't rewritten in all this time. And God said, I've taken care of you. You now take care of my people. And I said, well, the hell with it. I still don't want to do it. So tough, find somebody else. No, it's not going to fly. We have a job to do. We're going to get the job done. And by the way, thank God he was insistent, because that book needed some major rewrites. Oh, my goodness.
And how much more we've learned.
Oh, how much. It's just so much better than it previously was. And of course, now it's 4,200 pages long. So, it's a sizable addition to the library at 5 volumes. But,
but even in its first iteration, look at how popular it was in Iran.
Yes, it was had higher readership in Iran. Prophet of Doom did than any other place on earth. And at the time, Iran was 90% Muslim. And by the time that the dust settled and Prophet of Doom did its thing, Iran now is less than 35% Muslim. And
still dropping.
And still dropping. And as I say, I think this is Yahweh's doing. I actually think that Yahweh would like to see the secularists in Iran, many of who have intermarried with Jews, and there'll be a significant Jewish DNA among Persians, and they're bright people. And they were besieged by Islam. It was forced on them. It was surrender or die, and that never should have happened to them. And so, I'm encouraged that the Prophet of Doom could have played a significant role in what is geographic Babylon. I know God's going to call his people out from the 3 Babylons, and geographic Babylon is Persia. So I'm hopeful that Prophet of Doom and now Goddamn Religion plays a role, and it appears to have. And it's also protective of God's people in Israel, giving them a way to defend themselves against the bloody genocidal nature of Islam. This is important.
Just one is worth it. I mean, that it's forever. So just one is worth it.
Yes,
you give one person forever.
You look at the garden. God had none. He tried one, it didn't work. He tried 2, it didn't work. And then he had the fall of the Nephilim. He found 8. Okay, that was great. That's 8 people. Wow. And then, he worked through. He had.
It wasn't too long. They were off the boat before they started doing naughty stuff.
They did. Yeah, it was true. And they had then Abraham and Sarah, and they became a family with 3. But there was a fractured family incident with Hagar and Ishmael in the midst of it, and And then Ishak was fooled by his wife into giving the secondborn the blessing, and Esau was sent off, and Jacob was not the sharpest tool in the shed either. And you look at Jacob, and he was played by Laban, having no backbone, not even able to stand up to him, and he got the wife that he didn't want, that was actually the wife he should have loved. And they conceived children who turned out to be rotten. But that's the birth of Yisrael. Prior to that, there is no Yisrael. That's why God returning to the Nakri, this observant foreigner, just like he started in Eden and bringing us back to Eden, he started with Goy. Yeah, and it's a Goy that is responsible for bringing the children of Israel back from their departure from God. The whole story comes full circle. But that not a lot of good moments there. I mean, there's occasionally the Dowd enters the story. A Shamuel is a great example. An Elia is a great example. There's a moment or two in Hezekiah's life that's a good example. The prophets were all great examples, but there's not a lot of them, and there hasn't been really. There was none from 447 BCE. To 24 years ago, there was exactly none. None. Not a single person. You're God. You've given all this revelation, and not a single person understood it. Not a single person responded to you. Not a single person acknowledged you by name or acknowledged what you and your son had achieved. For 2,500 years, with all of that prophecy, and not one.
Wow.
Yahweh said he was going back to his abode, and that we could handle things down here.
Yeah. What's ironic is that Israelis could learn quite a bit from the Persians, and about Islam, and Yah's making it clear. Listen, Yehudim. It began with the Goy, and it's going to be fixed by the Goy, with the Goy. When I deploy the Goy.
Yes, I'm going to speak through the Goy. I'm going to enable the Goy. I have announced that Hanakri in the Torah is the man that's going to bring you back home. I dedicated my home with Solomon giving the Sermon on the Mount, telling you about the arrival of Hanakri. And he is my observant foreigner. He is my voice. He is the final Zeroah. He is the one who you need to listen to if you're going to come back home. And if you don't return to me, I'm not returning to you. So God's been really clear. And then you look at the prophet like Yeshayah. Yeshayah is a treatise on how to perform as the Choder, and how the Choder ultimately manifests as the man from Edom, which is reprising the role of Obed-Edom. It's all there. It's all very clear as to, even in this story, Yada is named. The Bashar Herald is named. God tells us that the tree of knowledge is in fact the Choder. It's the whole story is underscored, and God lays it all out. It was just there for us to understand. You read Dowd's Mizmor, and all of them say the same thing, that he volunteered to serve as the Passover lamb and then take our guilt into Sheol and Matzah. And yet no one paid any attention to it. And they chose to believe false messiahs.
Yep. In a selfish way, in a personal way, as a Yehud, I find it delicious that he's sticking it in the rabbi's eye, basically telling them the biggest ever, who's your daddy?
Yeah, exactly. Who is your daddy? The realization that the rabbis have not only have it wrong, but are the greatest enemy of the Jewish people and have been for 2 millennia. And God is saying, I'm going to show you, I'm going to embarrass you, but this one Goy is going to understand more than all of you combined by an infinite degree. And your insights are all wrong, his are all right, and they are profoundly important. And so I'm going to issue my call to come out of Babylon through Hanakri, the observant foreigner, and that should be really embarrassing because of how lost you have been, for how long you have been lost.
Oh no, what's really embarrassing is before I ever came to this, I've read at least 2 volumes of Halakha and Mishnah, okay? From cover to cover. What's embarrassing is what's between those covers.
Absolutely.
Absolutely embarrassing.
Oh, the Zohar, what a piece of trash. And the Talmud, it's rubbish. It's
the Mishnah, the Halakha, all of your writings.
Rabbinical
Let
Judaism.
them be a witness against you.
It's
Not only that,
so arrogant and so stupid.
If the Nakra doesn't charge a thing except he offers the gift of eternal life, do you know how much it costs to go to yeshiva?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, you want to see it in the synagogue, you got to pay for that seat. If you want it up front, you got to pay more for that seat. You want membership, you got to pay for that. You want your kitchen blessed, you got to pay for that. If you touch a dish that shouldn't be touched together, you got to pay for that. You want the food that's kosher for you to eat, well, you got to pay for that. Rabbis are the most overpaid pieces of crap in the world.
How much is those little weasel ass hats they wear? How much do you think?
Oh
those
my
things
God,
cost?
they're
$6,000 to $12,000. Yeah.
to look stupid. And the whole thing is a con. And what God is saying is, since there was was not a single Jew through whom I could speak, I'm going to wake you back up with a goy. And just to rub it in, I'm going to have that goy figure it all out by studying the very prophetic text that I had given you in your language. And he's going to be able to figure it out by studying those prophetic texts and rendering them accurately and making these deductions from those texts that you've had for 3,450 years. You couldn't figure it out. And yet in 24 years, he's going to figure it all out. Now, chew on that.
Na, 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 na.
Yeah, it is. It's a slap in the face. And that's what's needed, because Jews were obnoxious towards God, told him to shut up and go away during the Exodus, and they haven't changed. And so somebody has to get their attention. And it's not going to happen by saying, pretty please, I'm going to be the cute little lamb that's going to tell you that I just really love you. I understand that, you're traumatized, but it's going to be okay. No, you did awful things. You erased God's name. You denied his son. You have screamed over the Torah and creating this Talmud. You created 3 obnoxious religions that have tormented you for all of this time. And so, no, it's not sweetness. In fact, God chooses the characters to tell his story, and the character that he has chosen this time is a bull, and bulls are bulls. There's a reason that a bull is a bull.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And don't even try, my fellow Yehudim, who need to be Yehudim, to try and pull the anti-Semitic nonsense to try and stifle debate and reason and logic. You're the ones who are anti-Shemitic. You have been from the beginning. And the person who's trying to rescue you from your own insolence and stupidity is the most philo-Shemitic person on the planet.
Correct.
Wake up.
Wake up. Shem means name. You know that Shem means name because you call Yahweh Hashem.
The name.
And so anti-Shem is to be against the name
Yahweh
that we reintroduced. So you can't make that claim. And oh, by the way, I'm laying down my life to restore this mortal remnant of Yisrael in the end. And I've dedicated 100,000 hours over the last 25 years to enlightening you to who Yahweh really is, what he is offering, what he expects in return, how you can restore your relationship with him. And I've never accepted a penny, never asked for anything from anybody under any circumstances. I've encouraged people to dedicate themselves to this cause because God's all in on it, and he wants us to engage and to act and to make a contribution. But you will find me as the antithesis of the rabbis. I not only don't ask for money, I will accept none from you.
Kirk, you can help me with this one. As they say in Alabama, y'all should be saying Todah Rabbah, Mr. Choda.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true that we are offering you what the rabbis stole from you.
Yeah.
We're returning what they stole.
Yes, but we're an ungrateful bunch, aren't we?
Well, the Jews are a tough audience. I mean, when you have a man of the character of Moshe, and he wants God to kill him because Jews are so irascible, so embittered, so obnoxious, so impossible to lead, that Moshe says, if you care at all for me, for through impossible, you'll just that would be the most merciful people. And God didn't disagree with him. They are. God just simply told him that I will create a buffer for you by sharing these ruach that I have assigned to you with 70 people that they're not going to contribute anything, but they will provide a bit of a buffer for you so that you can endure the obnoxious nature of these people. You're still the only one that's going to speak for me, but you can at least have them as a buffer. And then I'm going to offer to you the answer. And that is that there'll be two guys there that are filled with the Spirit. And those two guys are Dowd, the Almighty's beloved, and my Dowd, the best friend of Dowd. And we read right there in Bob Midbar, Numbers 11, when Moshe has his meltdown, that there are two people that are filled with the Spirit that are going to act as prophets, and they are Dowd and my Dowd. And God's saying, that's the answer. You get them to the promised land, I'll take it from there. I got a couple of guys. And he did. And he has a couple of guys.
Promised him the sun and the moon.
He did.
He promised Moshe the sun and the moon.
He did. He promised Moshe the sun and the moon, the greater luminary and the lesser luminary, and there they are. And they work together as signs of the Mow'ed, of these restoring witnesses of these 7 annual meetings. God laid it out right out from the beginning, and that the tree of knowledge is going to bring you right back to the tree of lives. And oh, by the way, that's who the Towrah is. The Towrah is not a messianic character. Can't be, because he's a stem, and the Messiah is the Shemach, the main branch. But it's quite clear that Towrah is the tree of knowledge.
Yeah.
And that tree is responsible for bringing you back to the tree of lives. And it's Dowd that fulfilled Passover, putting it all together. And so why is it that it took a goy to figure all this out, to be the first ever to recognize this and share it with you? And what are you going to do, Israel? Are you going to continue to do what you have done and be miserable, be estranged from God, being kicked around the planet? I mean, the next 7 years are going to be really horrific. Are you going to continue to do the same things, be religious, be political, pretend that, it's going to end differently for you? You're going to be insane. Are you going to listen?
Yeah, in all seriousness, in terms of waking up, realize that the tree of knowledge, the Towrah, the man sitting in front of you, is the reversal agent for the anesthesia of rabbinical Judaism.
Yeah. And keep in mind, too, I'm not claiming this title for myself. I didn't seek this title. I wanted to be anonymous. When God, I didn't come to God and say, hey, God, you got a job for me?
No.
God came to me.
God chose you.
Yeah, and it appears that based upon all the prophecies that go back through time, that God made this decision a very, very long time ago. Yeah. And this was his choice. And you can say that you think he made a bad choice. I wouldn't recommend that. It was his choice. He made the choice. I agreed. I said, okay, I'll do this. And we've been together ever since. And it makes no sense for you to say God wasn't entitled to make that choice.
Nope.
Particularly when there's 1,000 prophecies about the role that we're going to play together, and that it has transpired exactly as he said it would. But again, I didn't make this call. I didn't choose this for myself. I would never have chosen this for myself. I'm not going to run from it. I'm delighted to have the opportunity. I'm pleased that God had enough confidence
He even
in me.
provided you with a good woman.
He did. And you, without a woman that that can make a contribution and be supportive, the job can't be done.
Yeah,
it was essential.
Can I direct our rabbinical elites to Mashal 14?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dowd himself was the person who introduced the Towrah, and he begins his soliloquy on the Towrah by saying he's got a really smart wife. And so he goes from there, and then he uses Chokmah all the way through it, because Chokmah is the operative term. This job requires intelligence, and you're not working alone. You're working with a very smart woman, because the woman represents Yisrael and what Israel has become. And the whole idea of the Adam Parah of Numbers 19 resolves the guilt, the religious guilt of the adulterous woman that is in Numbers 5. And it's the ash that brings them all back. And what we're going to find is that this story in the garden, when God's finished with the whole story, and we'll continue this in future programs on a return to the garden, the last thing he's going to talk about is ash.
Yep.
And you can return to the dust, or you can be restored by the ash. But the ash is the Adam Parah. It's the sacrifice of the Adam Parah and Towrah, as orchestrated and consistent with Numbers 19 and Numbers 5, is the chance to be restored, or you can return to the dust of the earth. That is the choice, and that's how God concludes this story, and how we get from this story to the story of Numbers 5, and how that takes us to Numbers 19. Mm-hmm. And we have Numbers 11 through 15 in between that explain where Israel went wrong, why they're separated from God at this time still, and how that is ultimately resolved. And God says in Numbers 15, he's really clear. He says this is ultimately resolved by three fellas. It's a ram,
a bull, and a goat.
A bull and a goat. Eliah, as the master of ceremonies, the returning prophet, is the goat. And it's a goat's blood that also has to be on the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. In fact, it's the goat's blood that reconciles the relationship with Yisrael.
Yes.
The bull's blood actually resolves the issue of the high priest, and therefore the bull is making this offering on behalf of Dowd himself. And so, and it's really clear. It's the bull in the end that resolves the guilt of the remnant of Yisrael, whereas the ram opens the doorway to life because of his sacrifice on Pesach. God tells you the whole story in the Torah. It's all there.
Yeah, but we're stuck going la 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 la.
Speaking over God.
Yes. Babble.
Praying as opposed to listening. Being religious as opposed to engaging in the relationship. And so to pull you out of your funk and to slap you along the side of the head and said, wake up, what you're doing is wrong, and you only have 8 years left, and most of you are not going to survive it. This is the opportunity. And Towrah is going to be the greatest show on earth, but most of you aren't going to make it there. So I would advise you to capitalize on it so you'll join us on the Shabbat harvest. And then you can be one of the contributors.
Do not delay.
Yeah, don't delay. These books await you. It's a marvelous website, YadaYah.com. It's going to get even better as we progress towards it. And all of these books are now available. If you prefer paper, then here you are. It's Google my name, Craig Winn, or YadaYahowah series, and it'll take you directly to these books at Amazon. You can purchase them royalty-free and read all about it. Or if you prefer, on your phone, on your tablet, on your computer, on your television, you name it, you can read them for free by going to YadaYah.com. And of course, then there's all of these marvelous sites where the Yahowah blog persists, because what Yahowah realized And he told us this 3,000 years ago, that there would come a time when the voice is more powerful than the written word, and that he would have his voice come out of the heavens and speak directly to you. And God says, when he speaks to you, you need to listen. You need to act accordingly. This is your last chance.
It is your last chance. And remember what we said a short time ago about the word kara. Despite yourselves, despite your perfidy, you are still being invited to read, recite, and have eternal life, despite yourselves.
Yeah, and speaking of despite yourself, I didn't get this job. First of all, I didn't get this job because I asked for it, because I didn't ask for it. No one in their right mind would ask for this job. And this job is for 24 years now, every day before the sun rises and every day long after the sun sets, I'm devoted to this job. And this job, I ultimately get my body bludgeoned to smithereens. So this is a tough damn job. And the Yahweh has never been popular. But I didn't ask for this job. And the reason that I got this job is because there was no one among God's people that would listen to him. Not one.
No.
And so a goy was given this job by default. Now, God knew it was going to turn out this way. Everything goes full circle with God, just as we go from Eden back to Eden. We begin with Goyim and then have Yehudim in between. We return to the Goyim, bringing God's people back. And it is what they needed. They needed to have somebody who was outside of Yisrael bring them back home, because
the tribe is too far gone.
The tribe is too far gone. They needed someone to call them back home. And God chose someone outside the tribe to call them back home. And that is this job. And we're going to do this job. We're dedicated to it. And you are the beneficiaries if you capitalize upon it. And we will ask nothing from you. We will encourage you if you decide that you want to take advantage of what God is offering, that you read, that you educate yourself so that you know who God is, what he is offering, what he is asking in return, how he carries out all of these things, and what his timeline is. The more educated you are, the more effective you can be. And then we will naturally encourage you to share what you have come to know. It's essential. That way more people can benefit. And what you're doing is good for you. It's not just good for other people. But if you engage with us now, you devote yourself to learning, reading these books at YadaYah.com, and you participate with us, making a contribution to God's people and to this end result, then you will have the great joy of spending time with Yahweh, knowing that he appreciates what you have done, that you've pleased the creator God of the universe, and that the king who is returning, you've made his eternity richer by contributing to his family. And the sense of satisfaction that you capitalized on an opportunity you did what very few people have done. And you came to trust God. You listened to him. You acted accordingly. You were the antithesis of Adam. You used Dowd as your exemplar. And the sense of satisfaction is overwhelming. There's no other better place to be. Rich would be such a wonderful example of this. Leah's another example of this. You guys are all examples of this. There's no better place to be. And you can see it on our faces. You can see it in our eyes. You can hear it in the tone of our voice. We know exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that you are the beneficiaries if you act. And you will receive exactly the same awards and benefits, inheritance that we all have. Our future is assured. We don't need to do this for us. We're doing it for you. Capitalize. Well, now we've gone to 2 hours and 45 minutes on our family hour on this program on Return to the Garden.
You talk a lot, sir.
You can't be the voice of Yahweh, the call of Yahweh in this job unless you voice what Yahweh wants.
That's
and
true.
we're
The
passionate about
theme
it.
is to make
Yeah,
a
yeah.
long story long.
It's what they said. I would have written a short letter, but I didn't have the time. So, no, we're excited about what we're sharing with you. We want you to
Hope it all.
soak it in, learn it, share it, benefit from it. It's this marvelous story that God has offered us, and we want you to capitalize upon it and celebrate it. So thank you, everyone.
And thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Get on
Yeah.
the thing.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Joe.
thank you. Yeah, thank
Thank you,
you,
Joe.
Joe, for getting our books together. Thank you, Leah, for all of this wonderful branding that you're doing. Thank you, Dr. Jeff, for representing Yisrael so well. Kevin, you are hugely valuable, and it is a huge contribution to everything that we're doing. Captain Kirk, you were my brother from another mother, and we have been best buds forever, and will be best buds forever. And I've always appreciated your intellect and contribution, JB. Thank you all so much for being part of this show, and for my good friend Rich there, managing behind the scenes.
Thank you, Rich.
We're grateful.
Say Shabbat Shalom, honey.
Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Good night. Say good night, dear.